2 minutes to air, 1 minute to the live stream.
And it's still picking straight.
She looked at me like I was crazy. I said, that's not $7. Here we are.
1 minute to air. The live stream has started.
Give us 2 minutes to call the meeting to order. Is that fine? Let you get settled. Right. Good evening. Welcome to the Durham Planning Commission. The members of the Durham Planning Commission are appointed by the City Council and the County Board of Commissioners to make recommendations to the elected officials. We emphasize that the elected officials have the final say on any issue before us tonight. While this meeting is being conducted in person, it is also accessible using the Zoom virtual platform. In the virtual meeting platform, public participants do not have the ability to talk or be seen on video by default. In order to maintain meeting decorum and a discernible record of the meeting, the chat function has been disabled. For those attending in person, If you plan to speak on an agenda item tonight, please go to the table to my left and sign up to speak. When speaking, please state your name and your address clearly when you come to the podium. Please speak directly into the microphone. If you are attending the meeting virtually, you will be given the ability to speak at the appropriate time. If you have pre-registered, your name will be called so you can make your comments just like in an in-person meeting. You may also call in during the meeting tonight by dialing 1-301-715-8592. If you call in during the meeting, you will need to wait until the particular public hearing you are interested in starts. After all of the pre-registered speakers have shared their comments, I will ask if there is anyone else wishing to speak. At that point, you will need to digitally raise your hand by pressing *9 on your phone. And when recognized, state your name and address before making your comments. The Planning Commission is without a co-chair this evening, and the chair has to leave at 8:30 for a commitment. We will do our best to get through all the cases. We may appoint a temporary chair if we're in the middle of a case at 8:30, but other than that, we plan on continuing any unheard cases to the May 2024 meeting. The applicant tonight has a total of 10 minutes for a presentation. Each speaker after the applicant has 2 minutes to speak. Commissioners, we are limiting the time this evening as well to 5 minutes per commissioner for Q&A, and you will only be called on to speak a second time after all commissioners have had the chance to speak at least one time. Commissioners, as a reminder, after the public hearing is closed, you obtain the floor by being recognized by the chair. Commission members, please remember you share your time with your fellow commissioners. Keep your comments and questions pithy, and please do not repeat topics that have already been discussed or questioned. The time to make public statements is before motions are made. Once a motion is on the floor and further discussion regarding that motion must come after a second. All motions are stated in the affirmative, so if a motion fails or ties, the recommendation is for denial. Commissioners, if you are not ready to move a case forward, please indicate when questioned so we can continue to have discussion before that motion. Finally, I ask everyone here on the Zoom, the commission members, the staff, and the public to conduct themselves in a courteous and respectful manner. If someone fails to act in that manner, the chair will ask the offending person or persons to be muted on Zoom or to leave the room until such time that they regain personal control. If decorum fails to be restored, the chair will recess the meeting until a genuine commitment to act respectful and courteous is observed. Thank you all for joining us this evening. May we have the roll call, please.
Chair Cameron.
Here.
Vice Chair Shigaris requested an excused absence. Commissioner Cutright.
Here.
Commissioner Graves-Manns.
Here.
Commissioner Durham.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson requested an excused absence. Commissioner Kopak.
Here.
Commissioner McIver.
Here.
Commissioner Cease.
Here.
Commissioner Tract. Commissioner Valentine.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Woke.
Here.
And Commissioner Young requested an excused absence.
We have a quorum?
We have quorum.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to there are no adjustments to the agenda, I don't believe, right now, so let's move on to the approval of the minutes and the consistency statements. We're going to take this in two parts. First, we're going to approve the minutes from the March 12th meeting. Has everyone reviewed those? If so, can we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Kopech and seconded by Commissioner Cartwright to approve the minutes and consistency statement from the March 12th, 2004 meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. There were some errors in the February minutes. Those have been corrected. So we need to reapprove the minutes from the February 13th, 2024 meeting and the consistency statement. May we have a motion to approve?
So move. Second.
Who seconded? Been moved by Commissioner Cutright and seconded by Commissioner Cease. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. All right, we are ready to move into the first public hearing for zoning map changes and comprehensive plan amendments. We have case Z22-00048-A22-00003 Duke East Campus Edition.
Chair Cameron,
Yes.
need to request recusal for both this case and the subsequent case through my adjunct teaching. I'm an employee of the applicant.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to recuse Commissioner Cease?
So move. Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Cutright and seconded by Commissioner Valentine. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. May we have the staff report, please?
Good evening, Brooke Roper, City County Planning. This is for case Z2248, A2203, Duke East Campus Edition. Rachel Satterfield of Duke University and Durham Realty, Inc. is proposing to add 3 parcels owned by Duke University into its existing East Campus development plan zoning to allow for future college and institutional uses. The existing East Campus development plan consists of 29 parcels. So with the addition of 3 parcels, there would be 32 properties within this updated development plan and approximately 126.3 acres. 2 out of 3 parcels to be added are currently zoned downtown design and located within the downtown tier. The rezoning application also proposes to change them to the urban tier. Moving on to the next slide, Duke's East Campus currently consists of 29 parcels of land, is located just southwest of downtown Durham, and is already zoned university and college with a development plan. The total area for all parcels together, again, is 126 acres. The current zoning of the 3 parcels to be added is residential urban multifamily with a development plan, downtown design S1, and university and college with a development plan. To add the 3 new parcels to the existing East Campus development plan zoning, the entire existing plan and newly added parcels must be rezoned to university and college with a development plan. However, nothing is changing for the East Campus parcels that are already zoned UCD. This is the aerial map, which shows the general location of the project. Within the Durham Comprehensive Plan, which is the visionary document that guides how development should look like in Durham, the properties are designated institutional campus and recreation and open space on the place type map. The proposed university and college with the development plan zoning is generally consistent with the designated place type of institutional campus, but not consistent with the recreation and open space designation, as the proposal does not specifically designate area for open space or recreation purposes. If the proposed zoning is approved, staff recommend a change to the place type map to designate the entire property as institutional campus. As you can see here, there is a 150-foot transitional use area overlay proposed on site. This is shown in pink hashing on the development plan as well. The transitional use area would establish standards at the edges of Duke's campus with the intent to minimize adverse impacts of proposed development on adjacent properties. The TUA regulates height, outdoor lighting, architectural standards, landscaping, parking, vehicular use areas, and signage. A neighborhood meeting was held in accordance with UDO requirements on June 28th, 2022, where 20 community members attended the meeting. Staff would also like to note that there were 3 additional meetings held with the Birch Avenue group that did not meet the technical UDO requirements for neighborhood meetings, but we did want to note that. Moving on, the applicant has included textual commitments only applicable to the 3 parcels being added, including restricting access between Campus Drive and Gaddis Street, limiting uses, providing a pedestrian and bike path, and the creation of a community advisory board of no more than 3 community members to provide input on the planning of the proposed project. Additional text commitments are provided which exclude 3 parcels, which exclude those 3 parcels, and that includes limitations of height and size of the university president's house, prohibition of parking decks on East Campus, and confirming the primary academic use of East Campus. The proposal would change the zoning designation of 32 parcels of land totaling 126.3 acres, and bring 3 additional Duke-owned parcels into the Duke Master Plan to the UCD zoning district. The intended use for East Campus is for academic purposes with classrooms, student resident halls, administrative offices, and other support facilities. However, these are not committed uses at this time. However, any future development will need to occur in alignment with Duke's master plan. The site is currently within the urban, downtown, and suburban development tiers. The proposal would take reads 103334 and 103330 out of the downtown tier and into the urban tier to consolidate the application and allow similar development intensities across the entirety of the Duke campus. The properties are currently designated institutional campus and recreation and open space on the place type map. And as I stated earlier, the proposed UCD zoning is generally consistent with the institutional campus, but not with the recreation and open space designation. So staff would recommend a change to the place type map to designate the entire property as institutional campus. Finally, as a reminder, 2 motions are required for this application. The first motion is for the zoning map change. The second motion is for the tier change. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are available for questions.
Thank you. Righty. At this time, the chair is opening the public hearing. May we have the applicant to the podium, please?
Good evening. Woo. Good evening, Chair Cameron, Vice Chair is not here, and members of the Planning Commission. I am Neil Ghosh with the Morningstar Law Group. I'm representing Duke University with respect to these 2 rezonings. I should also note, I have my phone on because my wife is 4 days overdue, so if my phone rings, I will leave you promptly, and you will know why, and I'll request a continuance in that scenario. But in the interest of brevity, I know you've got a long agenda and some time constraints. I wanted to talk about both projects at once, both this rezoning and the next, and I don't necessarily need to give another presentation for the next one, and evidently I'm losing my voice. So this has been a very long and technical process, so I want to take a moment to appreciate staff for working with us. Their hard work, guidance, and probably thankful most of all for their patience with us through this process, which started about 2 years ago. As you probably know, I normally do not rely on visual presentations, but I've prepared one for these items because I think it can really be helpful to demystify these requests. This first slide should be really helpful in that regard. What this map shows are the 4 existing UC zoning districts that make up Duke University's campus. And those existing districts are shown here in green, blue, yellow, and orange. Now, the parcels shown in brown are the subjects of these 2 rezoning requests, and in total, those are 13 parcels. What we are doing here is adding those brown parcels into the existing UC districts that they abut. Out of the 13 brown parcels, we are proposing to add 10 of them to the central campus UC districts. So in other words, that means 10 of those brown parcels would turn orange on this map, if that makes sense. And then the remaining 3 parcels are proposed to be added to the East Campus UC district, so those parcels would turn blue on this map, and that is all that we are doing with this rezoning here. The zoning of the parcels, of any parcels not shown in brown on this map, is not changing in any material way. We have preserved the commitments applicable to the orange and blue parcels, though the language may have been tweaked to match today's lingo. For example, we changed the PIN numbers to REIDs, we've updated page numbers and references and things like that. But materially, they are the same commitments that exist today on both the blue and orange parcels. Technically, to add the brown parcels to either the blue or orange parcels, we have to rezone all of the blue and orange parcels and the brown parcels that are being added in. And that's just a technical requirement. Nothing about the zoning is changing for any of the orange parcels or any of the blue parcels. Nothing about that is changing fundamentally. Duke has acquired these brown parcels over the years. None of them currently are zoned UC. I also should note that Duke owns other properties in the city which are not zoned UC, but they're not part of these requests. Generally speaking, the parcels that are part of these rezoning requests are those which exist on the periphery of existing UC districts. And they just want to add them into the fold of the existing UC zone. Obviously, the main reason to rezone is to allow other uses on the property, and certainly that is the case here, but the UC district has some unique advantages built into it. The UC districts were created specifically for Duke and North Carolina Central University. From a use standpoint, they allow a host of uses, and if you think about uses that a university might have on its campus, it spans the gamut, right? So it's like offices, playing fields, classrooms, research labs, hospitals, things like that. And while those uses are typical in a university setting, they might seem a little odd if put together outside of a university setting. So that just illustrates one reason why a special zoning district was warranted for our area universities. The other advantage is that the UC zoning district allows for campus-wide planning in a way that other districts do not. The UC district allows UC zone parcels to be considered holistically at the site plan stage. And that means things like stormwater infrastructure, parking, tree cover, and more can be planned at the campus scale rather than on a parcel by parcel or project by project basis that is typical in other districts. This is a key consideration for Duke in each of these rezoning requests. There also are some special requirements for the UC district. For example, the university must have an illustrative campus master plan, which includes the parcels to be zoned UC. That is Exhibit H in your packet. It's also reproduced here as well. And I will say it's probably hard to decipher in either medium, but the illustrative campus master plan here does not show any new development on any of the 13 parcels requested to be rezoned. In fact, you can see that Duke owns a lot of land for which it does not have any concrete plans in this illustrative master plan to develop. Obviously, this plan that's up on the screen here is not a regulatory document, but as of December 2020, which is the date of this plan, Duke had no plans for these parcels, and it still does not. In the context of most other rezonings, you probably would ask, why rezone if you have no plans to build anything there? And I would say with the UC district, that's exactly the point. How these parcels can be integrated into the campus depends greatly on whether they are zoned UC. Duke already owns these parcels, but how they can be used, especially considering the advantages of shared infrastructure that the UC district affords the university, that will dictate how the master plan evolves. Also, some of these parcels already are used by Duke in their current zoning. They just are not integrated into the rest of campus as they otherwise could be with UC zoning. For example, the previous location of the International House at 300 Alexander, which is shown here, is zoned OI and is part of the rezoning request. Because it is a standalone parcel from a zoning standpoint, it has its own driveway and parking lot that literally is beside another driveway to a different parking lot on property zoned UC. Unifying the zoning can help eliminate those types of unnecessary redundancies. Throughout the process, which has unfolded over the course of a couple years, the project has evolved based on feedback from staff, technical requirements, and other feedback from community stakeholders. In fact, Duke has had several meetings with various stakeholders over the course of this process. Originally, there were a handful of other parcels Duke was considering rezoning. Some dropped out because they lack contiguity with existing UC districts. Others dropped out because of community concerns. And I have to say, as a client, Duke has taken community engagement very seriously and sincerely. I'm not sure I could quantify the number of meetings, emails, and conversations Duke has had with area stakeholders, but I did want to share with you some of the changes that resulted from the various conversations. The first thing I already mentioned, which is that some parcels were dropped from consideration. Generally speaking, these were parcels closer to the Crest Street community. Actually, in our conversations with that community, we found that they were not necessarily opposed to the Duke rezoning. Nevertheless, they were dropped because they lack contiguity with existing UC parcels. Most of the input we received comes from the Birch Avenue Neighborhood Association, or BANA, and it has to do with the East Campus rezoning, where we are adding 3 parcels to the existing UC district. Admittedly, this is the most unique aspect of the proposed rezoning because it represents an area where Duke's campus meets an existing and established residential community. Duke has made a number of changes based on feedback from this community. For starters, the property at 922 Rome Avenue is owned by Duke and was part of our initial rezoning request. The initial request from BANA was to have Duke commit to never build anything on that property, but given that that property is zoned in a way which allows it to be built, Duke compromised and dropped that parcel from the rezoning application altogether. And since dropping the parcel out of the application, BANA's concerns have focused primarily on one of the 3 parcels requested to be added, which is 400 Gaddis, which is otherwise known as Old Laundry Site. Duke has met with representatives from BANA several times, and I believe we do understand the nature of their concerns. We also understand that we may not have addressed every one of their concerns to their full satisfaction, but we tried, and Duke has made numerous commitments based on these community conversations. On this slide, I've listed commitments that were added to the rezoning request based solely on the feedback from BANA. We have prohibited through access across the old laundry site. Currently, the parcel is accessed from Gaddis and does not have any access to Campus Drive to the west. The commitment here acknowledges that if the general public were allowed to cut through Old Laundry Site to get from Buchanan to Campus Drive, it would greatly impact Birch Avenue. And so we have committed to eliminating any through access. We also have prohibited several uses on the property. While Duke does not have a plan for this parcel today, we recognize that the uses listed here probably would not mesh with the existing community, and Duke wants to be a good neighbor while balancing the flexibility of that this zoning affords them. We also have agreed to require a TIA for any site plan on the old laundry site and to implement the improvements identified in the TIA. I think that condition does a good job of addressing the neighbors' concerns about traffic while allowing Duke flexibility to plan this site for a more specific use at a later date. In my view, it's a pretty big commitment because the UC district does not require the university to do a TIA for any individual project. I see I'm running out of time. I got a few more things to say. The next commitment, requiring a bike ped path across Old Laundry to Campus Drive, that might seem a little counterintuitive given, oh, you want to cut it off there?
You're knocking out 2?
Yeah, absolutely.
5 more minutes?
Sure.
Yeah.
Almost done here. The next commitment, which requires a bike ped access across Old Laundry to Campus Drive, that might seem a little counterintuitive given that we've prohibited through traffic across this, but this is a concern that was raised by the neighbors, and in our conversations with them, we learned that their concern really is about vehicles, and in fact, many in the neighborhood enjoy the existing footpaths and do use them to get out to Campus Drive or the Arts Annex. So we have committed to maintaining some sort of bike ped connection between this site and Campus Drive. We also have committed to providing a landscape buffer along the east side of the property and preserving an existing tree stand in the southeast corner of the property. And finally, I would say Duke is committed to meet with BANA members in the future to receive their feedback before ever filing a site plan for the old laundry site. And I think this commitment really speaks to Duke's pledge here to be a good neighbor and meet the community where they are. It's true that Duke cannot tell you today what they plan to build on the site, but Duke recognizes that the community has a legitimate interest in what will be built here, and they're not running away from that. I think that's a pretty great commitment. Hopefully this gives you a better understanding of these two rezoning requests. The UC district is a unique animal in the UDO. It is meant to provide flexibility to our city's institutions of higher education so that they can continue to innovate and provide high caliber services to their students and to the community at large. A key feature of the UC districts is the flexibility they afford Duke and North Carolina Central, both in allowed uses, but perhaps more so, or more importantly, in campus scale planning. And while this has been quite a technical process, I think the colorful map, I'll turn back to that. I think that colorful map right there kind of sums up what's going on here. Duke has acquired, and in fact, they continue to acquire property around its campus, around the city. And you can see on the map from where these brown parcels are located that Duke is simply attempting to unify the zoning so it can better plan how those parcels will integrate with the existing campus. Our team is available to answer any questions. I thank you for the additional time, and hopefully I know this hearing is about East Campus, but I will not take 10 minutes for the next one. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. At this time, we're going to start having the community give comment. As a reminder, we have 2 minutes per person. So I think we have 2 people, even though they signed up later, that have PowerPoint presentations. Is that right? So I want to get those out of the way first, because that sometimes gets time to get y'all set up there, and it's Ben Andrews and Janelle Varley. So if we can get them set up with their PowerPoint presentations and let them get that done.
And I can advance it with the mouse. Yeah, there. Arrow down. Hello, everyone. Thanks for allowing us to join in this community engagement.
Name and address.
Ben Andrews, 508 North Buchanan.
Thank you.
Sure. I understand that the primary discussion this evening is on the 3 parcels that we saw in the map that will be added to East Campus. And to be honest, I don't object to those parcels being added, and I don't object to development. In many ways, I'm pro-development and pro-density. But when we do those things, I think we have to do them thoughtfully and to make sure that we are addressing stormwater and other infrastructure issues. Although where I live is slightly farther from those 3 parcels, I've spent about the last 10 years working with the Stormwater Department in Durham. Ironically, I moved to this area when we got flooded out of New Orleans, and we were so excited to live near East Campus, and then shortly after moving into our home realized that we have far worse flooding issues on Buchanan than we had in our small house in New Orleans. Over the last 10 years or so, the discussions with the Stormwater Department have essentially communicated to me that the stormwater generated from Duke's East Campus has to be, no pun intended, kind of absorbed by the neighborhood until there was such time as a rezoning or a demolition and addition of a new building on East Campus. And that time appears to be today. When I saw that this proposal was being made, I quickly read through it and was concerned that the city's request for innovative stormwater policy 117
Wrap it up in 10 seconds. Your time is up.
was not met. This is the stormwater coming from East Campus. It backs up behind the wall, which is terrific because it doesn't flood by front yard, but that head pressure creates flooding all the way downstream. So, you know, hurricane or not, just a summer storm, I have thousands of gallons under my house, and I pump them very similar to a New Orleans pump system. I pump 365 days of the year, and I manage those. I try to deal with freezing. I try to deal with power outages.
Gonna cut.
We need something similar to what was done close to Broad Street.
All right,
And
thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Jean Varley. Yeah, those 2 minutes go quick.
Good evening, and thank you for the work that you do on behalf of Durham and its residents, and thank you for hearing from us tonight. My name is Janelle Varley. I live at 508 North Buchanan Boulevard, near the intersection of Buchanan and Dacian Avenue. That's right across the street from Duke's University East Campus. My family and I have lived there since 2013, so that's a little over 10 years now. We love our neighborhood and our neighbors, and we really enjoyed living there. But I'm here tonight to share concerns with you regarding traffic issues on Buchanan Boulevard that we've experienced and seen during the last 10 years. My husband has prepared the PowerPoint slides that are submitted regarding the traffic issues that are referenced. Our neighborhood is a residential neighborhood that borders the East Campus walking trail. There are many pedestrians, runners, dog walkers, strollers, children, school children, scooters, and cyclists that travel on Buchanan and or cross onto the East Campus at Buchanan and Dacian. However, many drivers drive too quickly on Buchanan between Main Street and Club Boulevard. There are a few crosswalks existing, but there is not a crosswalk at Buchanan and Dacian. So we are here advocating for additional crosswalks at Buchanan and Dacian and or a four-way stop sign at Buchanan and Dacian. Additionally, I think my husband has noted that that intersection accesses the East Campus cafeteria or student cafeteria. So there are a lot of deliveries, large trucks, et cetera, that come up there. So again, if any additional development or growth is approved on Duke's East Campus, we anticipate that would add to or compound the existing traffic issues. And as a result, we respectfully request that you please implement additional safety measures or features if any additional growth or development is approved, with the goal of keeping neighborhood families, Duke faculty, and Duke students safe. So those additional safety features might include, as mentioned, crosswalks or other methods of slowing traffic down on Buchanan as it borders Duke's East Campus. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Next, we have Adam Crowther.
So my name's Adam Crowther. I live on the 900 block of Exum Street and Birch Avenue, along with my wife, 7-year-old daughter, 2-year-old son, and my 10-year-old dog, who is a very good boy. As you may be aware, a significant portion of blocks in our neighborhood lack sidewalks, including the portion of Gaddis Street, which serves as one of the primary access points to the old laundry, which is one of the properties that Duke would like to rezone. I have significant concerns about this rezoning application because of Duke's repeated refusal to incorporate into their application common sense traffic mitigation recommendations, including those that were specifically requested by Durham's Transportation Department. I believe there were 2 different red line additions into their application, both of which they refused. Our neighborhood is a quiet residential neighborhood neighborhoods. There are a lot of kids. I think there's 15 kids on my block alone. Rezoning the site must come with additional guarantees, so there'll be no additional traffic impact coming through Gaddis Street to the site. Absent these guarantees, I do have concerns about my ability to travel on that and other blocks within the neighborhood with my young children, with other children, with my dog, with my parents, anybody who happens to be on that block. I am in favor of responsible redevelopment of this site, but I cannot support this rezoning. And I want to be clear that my comments are not driven by spite for Duke. I am a Duke graduate. Duke itself is a significant reason why my family chose to live in Birch Avenue. But I also expect Duke to be a good, responsible neighbor so that my family and I continue to quietly enjoy our neighborhood. And I want to note one thing about sort of the through access concession that Duke has made. One of the critical issues is traffic accessing the site from Gaddis, not necessarily through Campus Drive to Gaddis. And so considering limiting traffic, being able to access the site from Gaddis itself is a critical issue for our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Doug Conley. Conley, I'm butchering these names.
My name is Doug Coonley. I and my family have been Duke neighbors for 17 years at 502 Gaddis Street, where we own a home. We appreciate the thankful development of the Arts Annex and the Satellite Park, and we anticipate similar improvements for 400 Gaddis Street, the laundry building, to make it safer and beneficial to everyone. The site access from Gaddis Street requires a careful and complete review of any development to ensure compatibility with the existing family-friendly and quiet residential neighborhood. It is critical for everyone's safety that traffic volume be limited to the values directed by the Durham Transportation Department, and that traffic be routed from Campus Drive should review of Duke's proposed development exceed that number. Duke has not incorporated any of these logical requests into their proposal, nor have they provided any indication of what development might take place. Therefore, the present residential zoning should remain until Duke provides development plans for the laundry building site at 400 Gaddis Street, and a complete review of their impact has been made by the appropriate Durham City departments. We look forward to working with Duke to create safe and enjoyable places beneficial to everyone and without negative impacts for our residential neighborhood. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Charles Dunega. Hopefully I said that right.
My name is Charles Dunnigan. My family has lived at 920 Rome Avenue 50 years. We've seen a lot of changes in the neighborhood. Some we like and some we don't. My main concern about Duke is the assets of Gaddis Street. Actually, if Duke gets to do something, I would like for them to access a road from Campus Drive. I did the measurements from the watershed. They have plenty of room. Either way or not, they have plenty of room. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Russell Lacey.
Hi, my name is Russell Lacey, and I live in the Birch Avenue neighborhood at 407 Gaddis Street, directly across from 400 Gaddis. and I am in favor of development at 400 Gaddis, but not of this rezoning. First, speaking narrowly on the feasibility of addressing traffic. There is already a Duke-owned and maintained road of 337 feet headed directly towards Campus Drive down the hill. To finish making the connection to Campus Drive, Duke just needs to extend their road another 176 feet, continuing at the same grade, and the nearby stream is well beyond the 50-foot buffer. I'm not an engineer, but it's clearly possible to extend their current road to connect to Campus Drive. It will just take time and money. If Duke won't connect to their existing road to Campus Drive, they need to commit to keeping traffic loads at current levels. Now, speaking more broadly, 400 Gaddis is zoned for RUMD, and that is the correct zoning since we are a neighborhood. It should stay RUMD until Duke puts forward a compelling and binding site plan for why this parcel should be rezoned. This 3.2-acre parcel could currently be developed up to 64 residential units. Rezoning would allow Duke to build a parking lot, a parking deck, a steam plant, a bus depot, or any other number of uses that are totally unsuitable in a neighborhood. The entire point of zoning is to protect against cases like this, where a Goliath like Duke has the power to build anything they want without restriction and accountability to the neighbors in the community. Why would you give Duke the right to develop anything when Duke says there are too many unknowns to make any meaningful commitments when this parcel in the urban core of downtown Durham could provide the housing we so badly need here in Durham? We became aware of a 2020 study that was commissioned by Duke's senior leadership to use 400 Gaddis for faculty and staff housing. Duke representatives actually provided us with some details of this study. It is 40 to 50 residential units, which are a mix of single-family homes and townhouses. This thoughtful plan takes into account the health and well-being of our neighborhood and is an obvious win-win. I ask you to inquire why Duke is not moving forward with this plan for faculty and staff housing at 400 Gaddis, and instead here asking for rezoning today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have Richard Ziegler, then Rob Cushman, and then Tom Del Vicio. In that order, please, if you could speak.
I'm Richard Ziegler, and I have lived at 918 Birch Avenue for the past 17 years. Basically, everyone in this room knows that UC is a very wide-ranging, broad development zone that allows a lot of intensive development, and that's appropriate for a college or university as on West Campus. But a little over 20 years ago, when that zone was created, it was created in consultation with a lot of the neighborhoods around East Campus, and East Campus specifically got a lot of committed elements to protect itself from the intensity that UC can create. So for example, on East Campus, multi-level parking decks are prohibited. There's no access to what we think of East Campus proper from Broad Street. There are a lot of things that were put in place to protect Trinity Avenue and the neighbors in that area. And basically, what I would like, and what I think a lot of my neighbors would like, is for us just to be shown the same consideration. You know, their attorneys said, oh, well, we're going to prevent through traffic. Well, you can put a gate between Gaddis and their property, but if they have a 7, 8, 9, 10-story parking deck, if they have enough intensive development on that site, just Duke itself will drive what we think of as too much traffic to our neighborhood. This lot that we're talking about at Birch Avenue, it's at the intersection of two dead-end streets in a neighborhood that was cut off from the city grid by the building of Highway 147. Because of the building of 147, the whole neighborhood's like a cul-de-sac. And if you've ever driven down Buchanan when Immaculate Conception is getting out of school, and I love Immaculate Conception, they're a great neighbor, but when their school gets out around 2:33 every day, it creates a traffic jam through our neighborhood. And we're just asking Duke to tell us you won't put a parking deck there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rob Cushman. I live at 828 Wilkerson Avenue. I've been there for 30 years, raised 6 children at that location. And I actually bought into the neighborhood with help from the city. This was kind of a blighted neighborhood at the time, and there was a first-time homebuyer program that I went through to buy this property, and I got a lot of help from the city. And since then, I've been hired by the city, and I've been made aware of just how limited the affordable housing is in the downtown area. I, too, am worried about the traffic. Since the pandemic, we already have more Prime delivery, FedEx, all this. Our traffic volume has gone up, and as I said, the school at Immaculate Conception adds to the problem as well. I am so fearful that some big traffic engine will happen on that 400 Gaddis property, that the only access to it is right down my street. And this neighborhood has changed a little bit over the 30 years. It's certainly not as blighted as it once was. And there are many more children than there were at the time my kids were coming up. But the neighborhood has put a lot of effort and money into putting traffic calming devices that are pleasant, children-friendly out there. They've got the pastel-colored turn things, and they've painted the lines to make the parking area wider so that people just are forced to slow down. A lot of effort has been put into making this a livable, lovable neighborhood. And residential zoning is appropriate for that piece of land. They could use it for family student housing. I did that at Carolina. I lived in that way. It would be a wonderful place for young students with kids. They'd be welcomed by our neighborhood, adopted by us, and be a huge addition. That's a good neighborhood relationship idea that I think they should consider. Rezoning this without any kind of constraints on what they could do, a parking deck would be murder. That would just kill the neighborhood.
All right,
unless they do all their access from Chapel Campus Drive. Thank you for your time. Sorry for going over.
Good evening. My name is Tom Delvisio, and I live at 817 Birch Avenue. I'm here to express my concern. The Birch Avenue neighborhood has made every attempt to engage and collaborate with no better sense of what the plan for the old future for the old laundry facility will be. My family has lived in the neighborhood for nearly 15 years, and one of the reasons we stayed was community. Neighbors talk, they share plans, they help out. That's the definition of a good neighbor. In our talks about this situation, there are many, many examples of specific situations where Duke, over the years, has professed to be a good neighbor, and then, when it suited them, has cut out stakeholders. That's my concern. That's not what a good neighbor does. There's been significant development in our neighborhood already, and it's putting pressures on the community. A lot of that have been talked about, but I'll stop and I'll pause here to just reemphasize. We have increased traffic. We've heard a lot about that. But Richard was right. I mean, it's a cul-de-sac neighborhood, essentially. There's only one way to get to that point, one way to get out. Every single day, when school lets out on the other side, people speed right through on Birch Avenue in Wilkerson to cut through past that traffic. Our house is across from the park. We watch every day, sometimes in terror, as little kids toddle out that park and nearly get run over by people speeding through the neighborhood. A development on the back of that neighborhood is going to push and consolidate more and more of that traffic. We're going to see more and more danger. We also have skyrocketing costs. It's harder to live in our neighborhood. More development without thought is going to bring more money and more development to that neighborhood and make it even harder to live in there. And so I think my takeaway here is that I really urge you to not give Duke that blank check, that free pass to develop any way they want in the future. We want to work with them. We're happy to work with them, but we need to know the details of what's going to happen so that we can actually give informed feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. The next three speakers in order are Kristen Page, John Fulich, Stephanie Grant. And I apologize in advance for butchering names, I really do. Go ahead.
I am Kristen Page. I live in the Birch Avenue neighborhood at 825 Birch Avenue. I am an active member of our tiny little community. I'm on the board. I'm a founding member of the Birch Avenue Run Club, which starts its weekly fun run at the corner of Birch and Gaddis. And I've helped resurrect our newsletter, which lets folks know about events like the one we just had this last weekend at the community garden, only a few hundred feet from the old laundry building, and events like this hearing that we're all here for tonight. I also have a 2-year-old dog named Juniper, who I walk 3 times a day all over our neighborhood, which almost always includes a trip down Gaddis Street and past the old laundry building. There is no sidewalk, so we walk in the street. And to be clear, Juniper walks me. On our walks, we wave to the kids at the bus stop at the corner of Birch and Gaddis. We pass Duke students cutting through the neighborhood from Campus Drive. We talk to neighbors about the latest home on the market. We wave to folks riding their bikes to and from work. We say yes when the kids cross the street to ask, "Can I pet June?" And Juniper greets her friends who are also out walking their person. We feel safe. I feel safe. And I am forever changed because I get to live here in my precious neighborhood. There are so many things, so many exciting things that Duke could do with the old laundry property, and I hope that one day they do. But as it stands right now, they could absolutely destroy the safe neighborhood I cherish by building what? Who knows? Too many unknowns. By adding how much additional traffic? Can't say. Too many unknowns. Since Duke will not commit to keeping me and my neighbors safe by, at minimum, diverting any additional traffic this property generates to Campus Drive, then I cannot support this rezoning application. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair Cameron, my name is John J. Freilich, and I live at 911 Exum Street in Durham. I've resided in the Birch Avenue neighborhood since 2008, with an exception of a 1-year hiatus in Moorhead Hill and a 4-year suburbical in the western suburbs. I'd like to extend my appreciation to each of you for your service to the city of Durham, helping our region really navigate this challenging growth. I'm here to advocate for 400 Gaddis Street to retain its existing residential zoning. I'm open to supporting non-residential uses of the property should they not negatively impact the adjacent neighborhood and be accompanied by reasonable committed elements to that end. I'm particularly excited by the opportunity for Duke to redevelop this blighted industrial site to house Duke University student and staff families, enhancing our neighborhood connections to the institution whose success is so interwoven with Durham's. The National Historic designation of the Birch Avenue neighborhood reflects not only the diversity of our dwellings, but also our neighbors, where we have blended relative newcomers like myself with families who tie back generations, to include those from historic Brookstown, an African-American community largely displaced by Highway 147. In recent years, we welcomed new neighbors, some fleeing war and violence from far corners of the world, and others simply seeking refuge from cold winters and poorly performing minor league baseball teams. From our diverse backgrounds, we've worked together and often in wonderful partnership with Duke University to foster a safe and friendly place for raising families. And not surprisingly, we've experienced our own baby boom over the last decade, and now our thoroughfares frequently host the big wheels and basketballs of this demographic alongside the bike and scooter traffic of more mature commuters. I encourage the Planning Commission to consider denying Duke's request to rezone 400 Gaddis from its current residential designation until such time that Duke develops, with ready and willing neighborhood support, plans that complement the vibrant community many of us call home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Grant, and I live at 829 Birch Avenue. I've been a part of the Birch Avenue neighborhood since 2006, when my partner got a job teaching here at Duke, and we moved down from Massachusetts. We love the neighborhood because it is both racially and economically diverse, even as pressures of gentrification continue. It's not perfect, but there's a diversity in the neighborhood that's not shared everywhere in Durham. It's very welcoming to queer folks like myself. It makes space for Duke students Duke faculty and staff. There are, I think, 6 student houses in the neighborhood, 2 legacy fraternities, and 4 group houses. It's welcoming to families that have children, as you've heard, but also to families that don't have children, to young folks and to old folks. It's a vibrant, mixed neighborhood immediately adjacent to Duke. And it has none or perhaps very little of the town gown animosity that plagues many universities and many university towns. We're the kind of neighborhood that Durham likes to advertise as being comprised of. And in order for that neighborhood and that diversity to continue, we really need Duke to behave responsibility. Duke's desire to rezone, coupled with its what feels, I think, to us like a coy refusal to commit to sharing its plan, does not feel neighborly. And the planning board has a responsibility to require that Duke behave in a neighborly fashion, which is to say collaboratively. Until Duke is able to collaborate by sharing its plans and asking more fully for our input, I understand they have in the past, but the sharing of those plans is a different story. This parcel should not be rezoned. I'm sure it's clear to you from many of our conversations why it's in our best interest to have this not rezoned, but it's in the city's best interest. And it's in Duke's best interest in terms of continuing this good neighbor policy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Betsy McMichael, Lori Schleicher, and Tom Miller. I'm butchering these names.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Thanks so much for your time. My name is Betsy McMichael, and I'm a longtime resident and homeowner living at 909 Birch, right around the corner from the 600 block of Gaddis. And here's the biggest reason that I oppose Duke's zoning request for East Campus. My family moved here in 1997 from a rural area outside the U.S. where we worked. We left careers and moved to have better medical and other opportunities for our second child, Janie, who was 4 at the time and recently diagnosed with a serious genetic condition. As we began meeting people, Janie zoomed with her walker up and down the neighborhood and made close connections with people of all ages and backgrounds, many of whom still ask about her. 15 years worth of friendly, impromptu conversations with a little girl that couldn't speak when we arrived. Janie, now 32, lives in an apartment with supports in downtown Durham, and I firmly believe that this would not have been possible without the confidence and social skills she gained through her Birch Avenue relationships. Janie uses a wheelchair now and is legally blind. There are lots of things she can't do, but with friends in her life, she gets help with what she needs and gives back just as much in other ways. The thing is, we don't have good sidewalks in our neighborhood, and certain blocks are so narrow that 2 cars cannot pass without one of them moving over and parking. Because Duke has not agreed to the most critical of the committed elements we proposed, significant traffic and noise are serious threats from my view that concern me. It would eliminate the natural community building opportunities that helped our daughter Janie and other marginalized people have a chance at a wonderful, less lonely life. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's Lori Schleicher? Yes, I've redeemed myself. Yes.
My name is Lori Schleicher, and I live at 510 Gaddis Street in the Birch Avenue neighborhood. I, along with other representatives in the neighborhood, have been actively involved in the discussions with Duke regarding rezoning for several years now. I feel like we made great progress in our relationship until John Noonan, Vice President of Facilities at Duke, declared at one of our meetings that Duke would not put committed elements in their application to adequately address our concerns for the safety and character of our neighborhood based upon, and I quote, too many unknowns regarding the future needs of Duke. While I understand that they don't want to tie the hands of someone who will follow in their footsteps to develop this property in the future, I certainly don't understand why the residents of Birch Avenue should bear 100% of the risk so they can be flexible. The laundry facility, as you have heard, is located right in our neighborhood at the end of a narrow dead-end street with no sidewalks, my street. Committed elements 1 and 3 do not guarantee access from only Campus Drive as we requested to maintain our safety. Combine this with the small list of limited uses in number 2, we have no sense that Duke respects the character of our neighborhood. We do not need to live with the too many unknowns that will come from rezoning it to UC, allowing Duke, in essence, to have a blank check to do what they want. If you do not reject this rezoning request and recommend it remain befittingly residential, the only fair option is to ask Duke to give us parity with the residents of Trinity Park and the holistic committed elements Duke put into place for them regarding any future development of East Campus, which preserves their neighborhood, a neighborhood already buffered by wide streets, sidewalks, and multiple access points. The residents of Birch Avenue deserve no less consideration than our neighbors at Trinity Park from this commission and from Duke University. Thank you.
Hey, Tom.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Tom Miller. I live on Virginia Avenue. I was until recently a member of this commission. I know how important the work you do is, and I hope you've paid attention to the members of the community tonight who have made really good points about this old laundry property. My comments are going to focus on that. The UDO declares that the purpose of the University College District is to allow for growth and development of colleges and universities while protecting the larger community, nearby neighborhoods, and the environments from impacts accompanying major new development. The proposed rezoning of this tract fails to measure up to this purpose. Today, access to the tract is had from a neighborhood street. To reach the property, one must drive through the historic Birch Avenue neighborhood. The property belongs to Duke University, but as long as it is accessible only through the Birch Avenue neighborhood, it's a neighborhood property. It's not a campus property. The property is currently zoned for residential use, a use consistent with the residential character of the neighborhood. If it is rezoned UC, it could be used for just about anything except housing, And so in this way, it's actually flying in the face of Policy 90 of the newly adopted comprehensive plan. Duke could change this. The property adjoins other Duke land that is zoned UC. That land has a long frontage along Campus Drive, which, as its name implies, is essentially a campus thoroughfare. Through thoughtful commitments in its proposed development plan, Duke could cut the property, the subject property, off from the neighborhood and reorient it to the campus so that it becomes part of the campus. It becomes suitable for UC zoning. Today it is not. So if Duke wants UC zoning from this parcel, at the very least, it must agree to disconnect it from the Birch Avenue neighborhood and join it to the campus. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Sam Hummel, Ryan Astor, and Janine Privet, I believe. That's I forgot this part.
Hello, my name is Sam Hummel, and I live at 826 Birch Avenue. And my comments are in reference to the Duke zoning of the annex next to the Birch Avenue neighborhood, obviously. My neighbors have all made really excellent points about our support and our concerns around the development of this parcel. So I'm not going to spend your time reiterating those points. Instead, I want to talk about the implications of your vote on democracy. As Duke's lawyer has said, the neighborhood has a legitimate interest in what gets built here. I believe that's true. And if I understand correctly, if you vote for this rezoning, we will lose the ability to come before you at the time that Duke actually does have a plan for this parcel and express our legitimate interests in the same way that we're able to do today. So given that Duke has presented you with no specific plans, it seems to me that Duke's request is not really about planning at all. Instead, it is about reducing democratic participation in the redevelopment of this parcel. So with their request, Duke is asking you to ensure that we, the immediate neighbors, will not have that same type of participation available to us at that time. And so my ask is that you not make a vote, given that that is the only essential effect that I can see of this proposal. And given the fact that there's nothing to stop Duke from coming back with a rezoning request when it does have a specific proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ryan Asher. I live at 824 Birch Avenue. I've lived there for over a decade. I was heavily involved with Bike Durham, which helped with traffic calming in the neighborhood. One of my major concerns is the safety of everybody in this neighborhood because I walk and bike everywhere. I almost never use a car. Gaddis, as others have said, has no sidewalks and is very narrow. I'd invite any of you to come out and see it. It's already dangerous enough as it is with traffic volume as it is. If this rezoning happens, we would add greatly increased traffic to the neighborhood. There is already the Arts Annex out there, which is used sometimes by Duke students, and anytime there's an event there, which are 15 to 20 people, it makes Gaddis extremely unsafe to walk on once those people are released. So any further rezoning would be extremely unsafe for the neighborhood. So I'd ask you to consider that. And again, please come out and visit our neighborhood, and you can see how this is a residential neighborhood that absolutely cannot be rezoned with a blank check. And we heard that Duke University would like to be good neighbors. We heard that they'd like to make concessions to us, but would any of you take a blind bet if nobody tells you what's going to happen in the future? They've said there are unknowns. They've repeatedly told us this. Lori pointed this out, that we were told this to our faces. I don't think anybody would like to take a blind bet on, please rezone and we will let you know what we're going to do in your neighborhood. This is a residential neighborhood with a school, a park, a co-op, and a restaurant. It's already very busy. We have to know what would happen before we approve rezoning. So I would ask you to consider the safety and the structure and the peace of our neighborhood when you vote on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Janine Privat. I live at 827 Wilkerson Avenue. Zoning is supposed to provide predictability and stability. Duke's current application to rezone the Old Laundry within a residential neighborhood fails to accomplish either. Duke cites too many unknowns that allegedly prevent it from making meaningful compromises or common sense commitments to preserve the safety, character, and quiet enjoyment of our neighborhood. I would like to talk about some knowns. I know the pretty maps show Duke's campus with a large continuous section of UC zoning, which makes the Old Laundry look like a weird cutout. All of Duke's vehicular access must enter and exit from our neighborhood with those narrow streets frequently used by pedestrians, joggers, dog walkers, cyclists, and children. I know this is different from the other UC parcels on that map. It is a different piece of property. We have different issues. It cannot be treated exactly the same way. Council wants to integrate the property, but it cannot be integrated without vehicular access. It is a separate and apart piece. I know there are capable engineers who can plan a road from campus, and I know Duke can pay for it. I know Duke has chosen to pursue rezoning the property with too many unknowns. I know Duke can control those unknowns and has chosen not to look into those unknowns. I know Duke's application, for all its words and illustrations, barely says anything at all, because almost everything on Duke's end is an unknown. Without Duke providing some common sense protections against traffic, like those recommended by transportation, or committing to build a road from campus when the property is developed, or providing the same committed elements applicable to East Campus with respect to our neighbors in Trinity Park, I cannot support this application. I know that an abandoned building contaminated with asbestos sits on the property. I would love to see responsible and smart development. This application is not the right way to accomplish that. Why does Duke not want to truly integrate the property with a road?
Thank you. We have Walter Barron.
Hello, thank you. My name is Walt Barron. I live at 607 Watt Street. Been there since 2013. I live right behind Ben and Janelle. I want to be really clear. I am not necessarily against rezoning. We love living near Duke, near East Campus. It's a gift for me, my wife, our 2 teenage daughters, and our 2 dogs. Duke has been a great neighbor, but there has been one big issue that Ben introduced, and that's stormwater. Paint a picture, nearly every drop of rainwater on East Campus, tennis courts east, flows down the alleyway, Alley 13 between Dacian and Monmouth, Buchanan and Watts. And it's caused huge problems. Several years ago, it took sinkholes on both sides of Watt Street before the city was able to come in and temporarily fix the issue, a little sectional repair. We appreciate that, but that was a Band-Aid. It's gonna happen again. And what we've been told by the city is that the city cannot act until Duke takes some action toward development, and this is the time to do something. We don't want to lose our opportunity to fix this issue. We want to ask the city to ask Duke to address this now while we have the chance. We want Duke to agree to a text commitment to make this a low-impact development, to match the post-development hydrographs to the pre-level natural condition and ensure that this won't damage our neighborhood again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the galley that I have not called that would like to speak? All right, we're going to move to the Zoom. Oh, okay. Please come to the podium, state your name and your address.
Good evening, I'm Kay Alexander. I've lived at 820 Wilkerson Avenue for 37 years. So I remember what it was like when the Duke Laundry was open and there were big rattling trucks going up and down the street day and night, as well as management and employees of the laundry speeding up and down the street in their cars. This is not something we want to go back to. What all my neighbors have said about the character and personality of our neighborhood is true. We would like Duke to live up to its rhetoric about being a good neighbor to us instead of acting like a corporation that has the city at its control to let it do basically whatever it wants without accountability to us. I've been on numerous town gown committees and negotiated with Duke over central campus rezoning, off-campus student housing, a number of other issues. I personally have no reason to believe that the working committee they say they will convene when they do decide to develop the old laundry is actually going to happen. And if I had more time, I could tell you a lot more about projects that Duke has initiated on the old laundry site and the site that is now the Arts Annex, that we found out by word of mouth, by reading about them in the Chronicle, by finding out about them in the Durham Herald or the News and Observer, without being informed in advance. And again, my personal experience is I have no reason to think that any of that's going to change. I urge you not to support this rezoning application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Beth Steenberg. I live at 403 Gaddis Street. It's the last house before you get to the laundry building. I have lived at 403 Gaddis and in the Birch Avenue neighborhood for 28 years. I have lived in the neighborhood when it was the laundry building, when it was vacated, the Arts Annex opened, it has become the unofficial neighborhood dog park, and everything in between. So Birch Avenue is a safe and walkable neighborhood with single-family homes, duplexes, a park, nearby stores, and food establishments. It's a lovely neighborhood that has become a hot spot in Durham. The laundry building is currently zoned residential and is actually tucked in and behind this compact and long-standing neighborhood. I'm here tonight to oppose the rezoning application because it would change it from a residential zone to University College, and Duke has not indicated what its plans are to develop the property. It has not responded to the neighborhood or city transportation department concerns about traffic, nor addressed them in their application. So I don't oppose change or growth or redevelopment. It's just that Duke has been unwilling to disclose what their plans are or to hear the neighborhood's concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brendan Bodison. I live at 600 Willard Street, and I'm a Master's of Public Policy student at Duke University. I am personally very interested in Central Campus and East Campus redevelopment. I think it is a wonderful opportunity for Duke to enact its master plan and serve its community. Reading through that master plan and those updated planning principles, it reads as Duke is a university in the forest, Duke is a leader in environmental stewardship, Duke is a pedestrian campus, Duke is a community of communities, Duke is a citizen of Durham and the region, and Duke is a premier university. All of the variance requests that are inside of these planning proposals are, in my opinion, opposed to the core principles that are inside of this master plan. I believe that this request right here is a wonderful public opportunity for Duke University to commit to its master plan, to make itself a good citizen to all of you fine residents, to become a premier university using innovative stormwater management, and the integration of wildlife and wildland areas into its site to mitigate harms. And I would like to see the proposal reflect that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, one more last time. Anyone in the gallery? Before I put my head down and miss anybody. All right, we're going to move to the Zoom. First, we have Thomas Narton.
Hello, my name is Thomas Narton. I am a resident of 1509 Pinecrest Road in Durham. I am actually not in the neighborhood that others have spoken eloquently about, but I am very near the proposed zoning changes. I got a message, I got a notice in the mail. I was scratching my head when I got it. My neighbors were scratching their heads when they got it. This is near the Al Bueller Trail that goes around the golf course, and it extends all the way to 15501, far away from the specific changes that have been discussed on the call today. I have lived here almost 25 years, and I simply do not understand the implications of this change for my neighborhood. I do not understand the practical implications, and in particular, I'm really concerned about the change related to not consistent with current open space rules. I can also state that on our neighborhood list, we've had several discussions about this over the last couple of weeks, and nobody understands what this is about or why we are impacted. It may appear that the main changes that are being discussed relate to a small area away from us, but the rezoning is not restricted to a small area. The rezoning impacts a broad stretch of land, and so it is simply premature to approve this in its current form. The rezoning request is essentially, trust us, don't worry, it'll be okay in the end. And the community needs time and dialogue to understand what this is about, and that has simply not happened within our neighborhood. So again, it's premature to move forward with this rezoning request, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next on the Zoom, we have Alyssa Lopez.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
Please state your name and your address and go ahead. Did she drop? Alyssa Lopez.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please introduce
Perfect.
yourself. Mhm.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Lopez. My neighbors probably know me as Alyssa Ellis. I was recently married. I'm a resident of 1018 Birch Avenue, and I have been an owner of a DCLT home since 2018 that will be adversely impacted by this rezoning request if it is implemented. It is clear that the Duke administration is not willing to create a rezoning plan that addresses months of recent conversations with neighborhood residents and leaders. Their current rezoning proposal omits critical elements requested by the neighborhood and is overly permissive, as mentioned by many of my neighbors. Leaders of my neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods have worked for over 2 years to have Duke commit in writing to development that would respect and maintain the residential character of our neighborhood and mitigate any negative traffic effects. I personally do not have the flexibility to meet most evenings, and I'm grateful to the advocates within my neighborhood who are not compensated, unlike the lawyer representing Duke, to support our neighborhood. Unfortunately, despite clear, serious concerns, Duke is still requesting a rezoning that would allow them to create intensive, harmful development that would disrupt the character and safety of our small neighborhood community by creating construction, traffic, and congestion issues with no community input or oversight. As residents, we deserve to have our voices heard despite the Duke administration's wealth, power, and influence so that our neighborhood can maintain its character. I personally grew up in Chapel Hill, a town and gown community where we have seen rampant university development and how that can quickly displace historic neighborhoods and communities and destroy the communities that previously existed for years. Please do not let this happen here in the Birch Avenue neighborhood. Please do not approve Duke's zoning application as it is currently proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Mimi Kessler. Go ahead.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name's Mimi Kessler, my address is on record. I have been sick for a week in bed, and someone called me and told me that this rezoning was much wider spread than I realized. And I have concerns about that I share with the Birch Avenue neighborhood. But I also have concerns about the fact that this also involves the golf course. And I think that it would be, and the Al Bueller Trail that goes around the golf course. And it would be a genuine tragedy that this particular area, which provides a great deal of recreational satisfaction to the residents, would be redeveloped into something else. And it's one of the few places that the huge Duke campus offers something to the people of Durham. And I don't think that rezoning in this widespread way is legitimate. And I would like you to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the Zoom meeting platform that would like to speak? We have Angela Fox.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, bless you.
My name is Angela Fox. My family moved into our first single-family home at 909 Exum Street in Birch Avenue neighborhood. And I am also a proud Duke Blue Devil. I want to speak about the old laundry site on Gaddis Street. I encourage the commission to deny Duke's request to rezone without clear commitments and proffers from Duke. To be clear, only restricting public use between Gaddis and Campus Drive is not an appropriate proffer. Public use is only part of the issue. Since 2016, there's been a growing number of children that feel free to play in our neighborhood due to the community coming together to create a safe environment for them. We've educated the kids on bike safety, crossing the streets, using crosswalks and sidewalks when they're available. And many of us have also had to explain the memorial in our neighborhood for a bicyclist that was murdered by an aggressive driver. On a daily basis, our kids still encounter aggressive drivers. Drivers are speeding, honking at kids. And these are drivers that are using our neighborhood as through traffic. We've rose to the occasion as a neighborhood and done the things you're supposed to do. We've asked for traffic studies. We've implemented our own traffic calming measures. We've protected our bike lanes with the help of Bike Durham. And we have many yard signs making it clear that children play in and around our neighborhood streets. We're already on the verge of having something tragic happen again, even without an increase in car traffic. We are here again to rise to the occasion and protect our kids. Duke can and should commit to creating and using their own private street for entrance and egress. It's unfair to our kids to have to deal with Duke's private traffic. Duke has the budget and physical space on Campus Drive, their private street, to create a side street to this area. And the planning commissioners, you should feel an obligation to do the due diligence when we're telling you that our kids are at risk, not just our peace, but there's real risk for them. Please don't allow this rezoning without a proffer of creating Duke's own private entrance and their written commitment to not use the neighborhood for their private traffic.
Thank you.
We can only expect so much of our families.
Thank you. Next, we have Jocelyn Alcott.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Jocelyn Alcott. I live at 407 Gaddis Street, across the street from the parcel at 400 Gaddis Street. I moved to Durham in 2002 to take a job at Duke University History Department, where I'm currently a full professor. And I have served in many capacities at Duke, including as department chair, and have sat through countless meetings in which administrators have insisted upon the university's commitments to being a responsible partner with Durham and to reducing its environmental impact. However, Duke's response to the reasonable concerns about rezoning this parcel has repeatedly demonstrated both its disrespect for community members and its disregard for the advice of Durham City Transportation staff. The parcel is unusual, as you've heard. Perhaps it's even unique among Duke's properties, in that it is nestled within a residential neighborhood with vehicular access only on the neighborhood side. I urge you to vote against this proposal to rezone the parcel to UC, particularly given Duke's refusal to commit to access from Campus Drive and to rule out any conspicuously inappropriate uses such as a parking deck or a sewage treatment plant. Instead, with the current medium density residential zoning, Duke can develop the parcel in a way that not only is appropriate for the neighborhood, but also would advance an objective shared by both the city and the university. That is, increased availability of affordable housing within the urban core. Indeed, given the neighborhood's history, as you've heard, the most appropriate development would be to provide affordable housing for employees at the lower end of Duke's wage scale: dining hall workers and bus drivers, landscaping and custodial staff, hospital technicians, and adjunct faculty. This parcel is steps away from an existing campus bus route that could take employees to locations throughout campus at no expense. Meeting the city's most daunting challenges, the shortage of affordable housing and the need to address environmental impacts, will not succeed by converting centrally located residential properties into UC zoning for an unspecified and potentially damaging purpose.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sophia Califano.
Thank you. I'm Sophia Califano. I live at 809 Wilkerson. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak and for the work that you do for our city. My family lives in the Birch Avenue neighborhood, and we're asking you not to approve Duke's request to rezone the East Campus parcels, including at 400 Gaddis. Our neighborhood is residential, and that is how the land is currently zoned. It's home to children, neighbors in wheelchairs, dogs, elderly neighbors, families, and we have additional young pedestrians because our neighborhood also has a school, a church, a city park, and the Emily K Center. Some of our neighborhood is still without sidewalk or shoulder, and that includes Gaddis, which is the road to the old laundry at 400 Gaddis. Kids cannot walk or ride bikes around the block without walking down Gaddis. Duke's stated plan is not binding. It leaves them open to build parking, a bus depot, a dorm, and to bring heavy traffic through residential streets with our kids. We do support development of the space, We don't support giving Duke carte blanche to put our children and our neighbors at risk. If the only route in is residential, residential zoning is correct. It's inappropriate and irresponsible to move forward with no detailed and binding plan for an entry other than through the center of a residential neighborhood. Duke owns the land on the other side of the Laundry. There's no reasonable argument for the zoning to be changed now before Duke makes a plan and a binding commitment to reroute traffic to any new development through their campus rather than through our neighborhood. We have good neighbors, many of whom you've met tonight, so you know exactly what that means, and Duke keeping an option open to route heavy traffic right where our families walk and play is not being a good neighbor. Again, thank you for the work you do and for your time tonight. And thanks in advance for upholding reasonable guardrails to keep our children and neighbors safe.
Thank you. Alexander Tilley is next.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alexander Tilley, and I live at 821 Wilkerson Avenue with my two children who are 4 and 6 years old and my wife of 10 years. My two children are a part of the scooter and bike contingent that JJ mentioned a little while ago. I live 300 yards from 400 Gaddis, termed the Old Laundry in sort of the discussions that we've had. And I live along the most direct route from East Campus to the parcel and currently experience the effects of non-resident traffic coming to that site through a residential neighborhood and the education that has to occur even every year for the Duke students that live in our neighborhood with regards to the risk associated with driving too fast in our neighborhood with as many young kids as we have. Duke has not agreed to eliminate access to the site via Wilkerson and Gaddis, despite recommendations from Earlene Thomas of Transportation, and I would respectfully request that the zoning of 400 Gaddis be kept as residential until such a time as Duke can present a clear plan for the site that presents an alternative route of access to 400 Gaddis that does not increase traffic or the risk and danger to our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Elizabeth Brownrigg.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name's Elizabeth Brownrigg. I live at 2711 Circle Drive in the Duke Forest neighborhood. Even though we've been told that nothing has changed, I'm concerned about the implications of the removal of the recreation and open space designation for the Duke East Campus addition. The land that surrounds the Washington Duke Inn and Golf Course and the Albular Trail and Fitness Loop is an important resource for the entire Durham community. The trail and fitness loops serve many more people than those associated with Duke or who live in nearby neighborhoods. As our area continues to be heavily developed, these trails offer the rare opportunity to exercise in a beautiful natural area within city limits. They are enjoyed by Durham residents from all neighborhoods and every economic status. I walk there frequently. One reason my partner and I chose to live in this neighborhood was the proximity to the forest and walking trails. The forest that surrounds the Washington Duke Inn and Golf Course trails are an important resource for wildlife that is under pressure from development. The area is a designated eBird site because of its excellent habitat. Thanks to Duke's efforts, the entire area serves as a water filtration system that prevents pollutants from flowing downstream. The change in zoning and removal of the recreation and open space designation would allow for development that would harm the natural habitat, diminish opportunities for community health and recreation, and make the surrounding neighborhoods less desirable places to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick Halpin.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm Patrick Halpin. I live at 1712 Woodburn Road. My property abuts the East Campus, UCD, near the Albular Trail. I'm also a faculty member at Duke University at the School of the Environment. As others have mentioned, my question is not focused on the proposed properties of Birch Avenue neighborhood, but further focused on proposed changes for the entire zoning district to drop recreation and open space from the zoning designation. This change could be appropriate for some portions of the East Campus UCD, but is entirely inappropriate for the large area of the district, including the Albular Trail and recreational forest areas, for many of the reasons that have already been mentioned. The overly broad East Campus district, the geographic range is massive, spanning all the way from the actual East Campus to the very West Campus, west of West Campus, where the Albular Trail is located. If any changes to the recreational designation are to be made or considered, they should consider dividing this into different representative UCD districts, because it's very inappropriate to make a change to recreation and open space to cover the entire zone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in the Zoom platform? I don't see another hand raised. So at this time, we're going to close the public hearing. We are now open for commissioner discussions and questions. Mr. Gorham.
Can the staff explain the transportation requirements that a lot of community members have mentioned that the applicant didn't incorporate, please?
Oh, wait, I should let Neil go. I should know. Yeah, but one second. I'm sorry. I should have let the applicant, you had about 3 minutes left to respond to any concerns that the community brought up. Go ahead, Attorney Ghosh. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. And this is Neil Ghosh, attorney for the applicant, speaking once again. I did want to address a couple things. So first of all, there were a few people, in particular on the Zoom, who had concerns about this open space designation changing, and I want to be real clear about that. That relates to the place type map. That is not a zoning change, and nothing about the golf course zoning or the zoning on the Albular Trail is changing as part of this rezoning request. That's just on the place type map, which is not a regulatory document. It is a policy document, which I know you all know must be consistent ultimately with the zoning that gets approved, which is why I believe staff is recommending a change to the place type map for those particular areas. But the zoning for those particular items are not changing. I did want to take a moment to explain kind of the scenario that Duke, and I would assume any, Central, would find itself in with the UC zoning district. The UC zoning district is unlike other zoning districts in that the opportunities it affords the university weigh greatly on how the property can be used ultimately. So whether the property is zoned UC will definitely have an impact on ultimately how Duke decides to use these properties. And so that's why there is no specific plan for this development. Duke does not have any plan to develop any of these 13 parcels under their current zoning. And they don't have a plan to develop it under the UC zoning because they're not zoned UC. But they are ultimately part of the illustrative campus-wide master plan. One of the other benefits I think maybe is super important for Duke and maybe misunderstood is the ability to handle stormwater kind of on a campus-wide scale, such that the development, for example, let's take the old laundry site, which is the one that has been discussed most. The old laundry site could be developed, and then the stormwater for that site could be treated and piped to a different area of campus to treat the stormwater, thereby having fewer impacts on that property. And that's true of every property, not just the old laundry site, but I wanted to mention that. With respect to traffic and access, I think this is important to touch on. So number one, We've made a commitment on this parcel that is actually, I believe, in excess of what transportation suggested. We have said that we will do a traffic study, TIA, for any site plan, regardless of the number of trips it produced, for any site plan in Old Laundry, which I believe is in excess of what transportation had requested. And I'll be happy to stand corrected on that. The other thing I just want to note, I was a little bit surprised by some of the tenor of the conversation here. I have right here the original letter that the Birch Avenue Association sent us for their requests. And one thing, I just want to read from it, and this is related.
Right, we have about 30 seconds, and I'm going to cut you off.
This is related to Old Laundry site. This was the request, the original request. No vehicular access to 400 Gaddis Street shall be permitted from Wilkerson Avenue or Wilkerson Avenue Extension. No access from Campus Drive or any other contiguous Duke University property shall be permitted. That was their original request. Now, I want to acknowledge that the conversation has evolved since then. But to suggest that Duke has not listened and has done nothing, I think is just plainly false. And Duke has made some serious concessions here with respect to both traffic and access. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All righty. Now we can proceed.
Earlene Thomas, Transportation. So what we requested as a part of the zoning application was that a access from the laundry parcel be provided to Campus Drive, for connectivity, and due to past and current concerns from the neighborhood with traffic and traffic calming that's been already completed to date. So that is not something that transportation could require, even at the site plan stage for redevelopment, because it would be a new access point. It would need to be a voluntary proffer to make that connection, because they do have existing driveways.
Do you have a follow-up? No? Commissioner, go back.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of questions for the applicant. I was hoping to dig into potentially some more concrete examples of why Duke would be limited, or what the real implications would be for Duke if it did not rezone now and waited until there was a more concrete development plan, is my first question.
Yeah, so I think the reality is that without this parcel or these parcels being zoned UC, that Duke's long-range plans for them would be to develop them under their current zoning. So the planning would look completely different. As has been mentioned, this, in particular, the Old Laundry site is already zoned for multifamily. I believe it was mentioned that it could already be built for 64 multifamily residential units. And if they were to do that, they would include all of the parking for that on that site. They would include all of the stormwater for that on that site. They would include all of the open space, tree save, everything would be on site for that development. And I also just want to, I thought it was a little bit of a red herring. My understanding is that the current zoning of the Old Laundry site does not require affordable housing. I know that was mentioned a couple times that, it should be zoned residential so that we have more affordable housing. I'm not sure that that commitment necessarily exists in the zoning, but Duke is not a provider of housing generally speaking. However, the housing they do provide for their students is some of the most affordable housing in the city of Durham because it's affordable to students.
Okay. And why not connect to Campus Drive and take on the responsibility?
Yeah, it's a great question.
That traffic and divert it from the community.
The issue is not about not connect. Duke doesn't have an interest in not connecting to Campus Drive. What we can't tell you today is whether that connection is possible. I know it was mentioned that there's a road that goes over there. I'm not sure which road that talks about, and that it only needs to be extended, I don't know, 100 more feet or whatever the number was. And I mean, I think two-dimensionally that could be true. I don't have a reason to doubt that. However, in looking at it in the context of this rezoning, there are streams and low-lying areas, potentially wetlands, that are between Old Laundry and Campus Drive. So what we don't know is whether we can actually complete a vehicular connection to Campus Drive. So the parcel today is accessed only from Gaddis Drive, which is why we can't also agree to eliminate access from Gaddis Drive, right? So because if we eliminate from Gaddis and then aren't able to make the connection to campus, well, now you can't access the parcel. So what we have done is eliminate through access on this parcel.
Okay. So I'll just voice that I have some concerns about the inconsistency with the comprehensive plan, both in the move away from residential, and also just because of the lack of specificity that Duke is able to provide at this time about what might be done. And so it's hard to know how to evaluate this case without more of that specificity. I think we've heard it shared that there are unknowns, and I think those unknowns probably make it hard for Duke to move forward and also make it hard for us as a body, or me particularly as a commissioner, to evaluate whether this will ultimately be consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. I actually see the mutual engagement as a real positive that's happened thus to date between Duke and the community, and I've seen efforts to be flexible on both sides. And I think it would make a lot of sense to me to see that discussion continue up until which time when there is a specific development plan to react to. But I thank you for your time and the community for the time this evening.
Commissioner Mans.
You have a question. This might be for staff. How many times has this been brought to the commission? And is there a cadence of time? I'm relatively new to the commission, but this seems like this has been a long standing concern.
Thank you, Commissioner. So this is the first time these specific proposals are being brought forth. However, there have been rezonings from Duke in the past. I believe the last one in Duke and the attorney may be able to speak to it, may have been 20 years ago.
Let's ask a follow-up question to you. So how long have you all been engaging with the community directly, and how many community conversations and meetings have you all had about this?
Oh, I think it would be difficult to quantify the number of meetings, conversations, emails, and I will tell you, I was not at all of those meetings or on all of those emails or phone calls. Duke has had several representatives, not just the folks that I'm working with directly on the rezoning. Several representatives from Duke have met with area stakeholders about this rezoning specifically. I don't know how to quantify that, but I think we've been in this rezoning process for something like 2 years.
2 years. Thank you.
Yeah, about 2 years.
All right. That's all I wanted to know.
Commissioner Cutright.
Thanks, Chair. This feels fairly, like, I don't know, it feels fairly obvious to me that there's a development to be done here, just like any other development that comes before us. And any other development that comes before us with lack of clarity it just doesn't get approved. It doesn't make sense when we don't know what's going to be developed. I understand the need for flexibility. I also understand the need to plan in the future. This doesn't prevent that, right? It puts a caveat on the future plans, and I think that's okay. I think I agree with Commissioner Kopak about the community engagement. I think that should continue. I think some reasonable solutions have been proposed, and I think that everyone on the team, Duke's team, is capable of figuring out the things like in 3 dimensions, whether or not you can actually connect to Campus Drive. Those are fairly simple things to figure out and determine whether or not it makes sense and you can actually cut off from the neighborhood. I think those are things that can be worked through and figured out. In thinking through what we need to do here today, again, my question is, I don't know if this is a question for staff, whether you guys agree to this or not, can you pull out the single parcel and allow for the rezoning of everything else and allow the old laundry site to be considered in the future for a rezoning? Whether that's something you consider is one thing. Whether we can actually do that without going through another rezoning application, I don't know the mechanics of that. That's my thought about this and what needs to happen. Again, these are fairly reasonable asks, I think, as it relates to this site specifically, and I feel like they should be able to be worked through in a reasonable manner.
So with respect to that request specifically, I mean, something I could discuss with the client, we certainly have pulled parcels out of this rezoning. I think I mentioned 922 Rome, which is essentially adjacent to this site. It's just kind of up on the, more within the neighborhood, I guess. This is kind of at the periphery on the far side of Gaddis, and that one is on the other side. So I think that's a possibility, something I could discuss with the client, but I do want to, just, I think to assume that it's fairly easy to figure out whether this connection could be made is maybe trivializing a pretty complicated scenario, and it also depends greatly on what the site is developed for. There are streams, potentially wetlands, and environmental features between this site and the campus. I feel fairly certain that the site cannot, essentially, you can't just punch a road from this site to campus. It probably have to take a more circuitous route through other parcels, which again will depend on how those are developed. So I hear what your opinion was, and I will say, in my opinion, Duke has also offered some workable solutions here, which is number one, we do a TIA no matter what, right? Whether it's required or not, we would do one for any site plan on Old Laundry. And number two, if we are able to make access to Campus Drive, you can't drive through from Gaddis to Campus Drive across this parcel. Those are the types of commitments that I think address the neighbors' concerns, and I understand that they would prefer that the parcel not take access from Gaddis at all, but I just want to reiterate, that's a goalpost that has moved over time as well. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations in advance.
Thank you.
My question to you is, so when do you think is the appropriate time for your client to actually provide some information that would, A, make it more palatable for this body to make a decision, but also for the community? When do you think the appropriate time is? If not tonight, when is the appropriate time?
Well, the application is before you tonight, and I'm not sure what would make the application more palatable to this body. There's no two ways about it. Duke does not have specific plans to develop that parcel today, and this is a zoning exercise so that Duke could take advantage of a district that was created for Duke. So I can't tell you more about that parcel today, so I'm not sure that I could make it more palatable if your sense there is that you need more definition on what it is. What we have done is provide some prohibitions on what it will not be, and those are directly responsive to feedback we've gotten from the neighborhood. As I mentioned earlier, I think it was a little upsetting to hear some of the tenor because Duke has made a lot of commitments here. We've come a long way. And I recognize we're not there 100%, but that is not the definition of any kind of compromise, at least not my definition. Ultimately, for the community, what Duke is committed to here is to have continued conversations with, in particular, BANA, Birch Avenue Neighborhood Association, related to any development on this site prior to ever submitting a site plan, right? So, I mean, I think that's a very appropriate type of commitment. I believe a similar type of commitment was used for the Latta Park development. And it's a commitment where Duke is saying, look, they are acknowledging we don't know what we're building here now, but you should know what we're building here before we build it. And so we will meet with you to do that.
I guess my concern is that you're essentially asking the community to agree to an agreement that's going to be made later. But the fact of the matter is that can change after tonight, correct?
No, the commitment to a community advisory board is a zoning commitment that could change if we rezone the property. But I don't expect that any kind of rezoning to get rid of that requirement or that commitment would be very popular.
I would agree with you on that.
Which is why we've committed to it in the zoning.
Mr. Cartwright?
I think the question here is twofold. One, I don't know if you'll have an answer to pulling out this particular property for this particular parcel for rezoning tonight. If the answer is no, I won't have an answer to that. Are you open, or would you consider bringing this back later, 30 days, continuance, to have that conversation, consider pulling this parcel out or working through something that is more agreeable to the community? I'm looking for solutions here to help get this through, and it seems like we've got one parcel in out of all of this between both East and Central that's a challenge, and I feel like we should be able to work through that.
Yeah, no, look, I don't disagree with the statement you just made. I will say that this parcel, this one parcel that is the issue, is in the East Campus rezoning, one of 3 parcels, and the answers to these questions are not different on any of the other 2 parcels for this, right? Like, I don't know what, Duke doesn't know what they're going to be building on those parcels either. The application is before you. I'm happy to have that conversation with my client, but I would ask that this body would vote on the application before them. If we're going to pull it out, we can pull it out before City Council based on the feedback we get here. But like, we have heard what the community has said, and we're aware of it. I mean, I want to be real clear about that. It's not that Duke has ignored the community. We understand the concern. I wish I had a better answer for you, but the UDO and the UC zoning district work the way they work, and the illustrative master plan is what it is. Duke simply doesn't have a plan, and the way that planning their campus works, I doubt they will have a plan for that parcel if it is not zone UC, because it could not be developed under those types of rules if it's not zone UC, obviously.
So what I'm hearing you say is, no, you're not willing to do a
Well, I'm not going to pull it tonight.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I wouldn't pull that parcel tonight, but I will have the conversation with Duke.
Do you want to have a continuance on this, or do you want us to vote on this tonight as it sits?
I don't think a continuance is going to be helpful. Like I said, we've heard the concerns.
Got it.
It's not that we're not acknowledging them, but I recognize there's still concerns.
Okay.
I appreciate it, though. Still got questions? No? Go ahead. Well, any other questions before we want to be sure? Commissioner Valentine, you have a question? No? All right. Are we ready to move this case forward? All right. May I have a motion to move this case forward?
Chair, as it relates to case Z22-00048 and A22-00003 Duke East Campus Edition, I make a motion that we move this case forward to City Council with a favorable recommendation.
And we have to do 2 votes, remember? So is this the zoning map change or the tier change?
As it relates to Z2200, I'm sorry, the A22-00003 Duke East Campus Edition, I make a motion that we move the annexation forward with a favorable recommendation to City Council.
Tier change.
Tier change, sorry. Tier change.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Cutright and seconded by Commissioner Kopak to move case, we're doing A22-00003 tier change forward to the City Council with a favorable recommendation. May I have the roll call vote, please?
Chair Cameron?
Yes, for the tier change.
Commissioner Cutright?
Yes.
Commissioner Grace Mans?
No.
Commissioner Durham?
No.
Commissioner Kopak?
No.
Commissioner McIver?
Yes.
Commissioner Valentine?
No.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Woke?
No.
Motion fails 5-4.
All right. Are we ready to move this case forward for the zoning map change? May I have a motion for, huh?
No, we need to have a separate motion. It's two separate, yeah.
Chair, as it relates to case Z22000048, Duke East Campus Edition, I make a motion that we move this zoning change forward to City Council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Cutright and seconded by Commissioner Kopak to move case Z22000048 zoning map change forward to City Council with a favorable recommendation. May I have the roll call vote, please?
Chair Cameron,
No?
did you say no?
No?
Commissioner Cutright?
No.
Commissioner Grace Mans?
No.
Commissioner Durham?
No.
Commissioner Kopak?
No.
Commissioner McIver?
Yes.
Commissioner Valentine?
No.
Commissioner Williams?
No.
Commissioner Woke?
No.
Motion fails 8-1.
So the applicant already presented. Do you have anything to add on the Duke Central Campus Edition? You have 5 more minutes. Nope. All right, we're going to open up the public hearing for case Z22. Oh, I'm sorry. Do we need what? Oh, I'm sorry. We need a break. Yeah, it's 7:34. Never mind. We're not doing anything right now.
We have a separate staff report on this?
I don't know.
This is Central Campus.
Well, we did.
I came to the city looking for a new challenge in my career. I stayed for the growth opportunities, work-life
We
balance,
have,
and impact my work has
Thank you.
on the
We're coming
community.
back at
The City of Durham,
7:45.
where careers
Thank
meet
you.
community. To connect with a career that serves the whole city, visit durhamnc.gov/careers. Vine a la ciudad en busca de un nuevo reto para mi carrera. Me quedé por las oportunidades de crecimiento, el balance entre la vida laboral y el personal y el impacto de mi trabajo en la comunidad. La ciudad de Durham, donde las carreras se encuentran con la comunidad. Para conectarse con una carrera que sirve a la ciudad del Toro, visite durhamnc.gov/careers.
Owning a home provides a sense of financial stability, family, community, and pride. But housing prices are now higher than ever, making it hard for many Durham residents to afford their first home. That's why the City of Durham is offering the Down Payment Assistance Program to support eligible individuals with up to $80,000 in 0% interest forgivable loans to purchase a house within the city limits. Visit this site or call to find out if you qualify for the program.
Alexander Cahill. Alexander Cahill. Alexander Cahill. We have a question for you. All right, planning commissioners, if you can make your way back to your seats, please, so we can get the shoulder. All right, we're going to call the meeting back to order. We're going to open the public hearing at this time for Duke Central Campus Edition, Case Z22-00047. And we don't have anyone signed up to speak on this case. Let me see, is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak on this Central Campus case?
We're here if you got questions.
Yes. No one in the gallery. On Zoom, we have Mimi Kessler. Go ahead, Ms. Kessler.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name's Mimi Kessler. My address is on record. I would like to suggest that Duke make a commitment to build workforce housing to support the university campus and the medical campus with housing that their minimum wage earners could afford to live, where they could even walk to work, but there is also public transportation. I think this would be an enormous gesture of gratitude to those people who now can't afford to live in Durham. And I think that it would be, even if they don't want to maintain the housing units, but I think it should definitely be, excuse me, lots of units. I can't remember what the document said, but there was a count of how many multifamily units, and make them make their workers be able to live where they work. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the Zoom platform that would like to speak? All right, would the applicant like to address that concern? Sure. You're not a developer of affordable housing? Nothing? I should be coaching.
On to the suggestion, I mean, Duke doesn't build housing, so I'm not sure that this is a commitment that Duke is prepared to make. Also, just want to note, I'm not sure to which document their comments were referring about multifamily units, but there are no plans here either for any development from Duke. So I don't think Duke has ever said they were building multifamily on any of these parcels.
Thank you. Seeing that no one else would like to speak on the Zoom platform or in the gallery, the public hearing is closed, and we are now open for commissioner questions and discussion. Commissioner Gorham.
I just have a question to the applicant. Were there any public comments on this central campus case on the 10 parcels?
So we have treated these rezoning cases together, even though they are two separate zoning cases. And I think you just heard the bulk of the commentary. I won't say that there were no discussions about Central Campus, but I think we have, in large part, addressed those. And I don't know that there are outstanding concerns from community members we've spoken to about the Central Campus rezoning.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns from commissioners? Commissioner Klepak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to raise the mobility question brought forth by the Transportation Department around the 10-foot shared path, and just, curious your thoughts about that, and what would be the possibility of committing to that now versus committing to talk to it, but outside the context of a rezoning, if I have that correct.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to talk about that. I would say my response would be the same as the written response, and we've not had any further conversations with the city about that, but we have, as is written, expressed an interest to discuss that outside the context of the rezoning. Reason being, the city has indicated a particular path, and Duke actually has been looking at pedestrian bicycle mobility in the same area, albeit the path that they have looked at is different than what the city has suggested. So I think the goals here are aligned. The commitment is not, the requested commitment is not really in line with what Duke has discussed for this, to address the same concern in this area. So we want to have a further conversation with the city about that, but ultimately Duke does plan to invest in bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure in that Pratt-Elf-Elba area.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any discussion? Are we ready to move this case forward? May I have a motion to move this case forward?
Chair, as it relates to case Z22-00047, Duke Central Campus Edition, I make a motion that we move this zoning case forward to City Council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Cutright and seconded by Commissioner Valentine to move case Z22-00047, Duke Central Campus Edition, forward to City Council with a favorable recommendation. May I have the roll call vote, please?
Chair Cameron?
Yes.
Commissioner Cutright?
Yes.
Commissioner Grace-Mans?
Yes.
Commissioner Durham?
Yes.
Commissioner Kopak?
Yes.
Commissioner McIver?
Yes.
Commissioner Valentine?
No.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Woke?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-1.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we will have case Z22-00019, Sagebrook. May we have the staff report, please?
Good evening, Brooke Roper, City County Planning. Just going to wait for Alexander to get the slides pulled up. Thank you. Jason Morrow of Capital City Homes proposes to change the zoning designation of 3 parcels of land totaling 17.36 acres and located at 2553 Chadwick Place, 2530, and 2518 Burton Road. The current zoning is residential rural. The applicant proposes to change this designation to Planned Development Residential 6.943 to allow up to 120 townhouse units. The properties are currently designated mixed residential neighborhood on the place type map. The proposed Planned Development Residential 6.943 zoning is generally consistent with the designated place type. This case was initially heard by Planning Commission on June 13th, 2023, followed by City Council on October 2nd, 2023, and January 2nd, 2024, where the case was continued. At the February 19th, 2024 City Council meeting, council members voted to send the case back to Planning Commission to reconsider in light of additional commitments. The aerial map shows the general location of the project in eastern Durham. The existing zoning, again, is residential rural, and the site is surrounded by residential suburban 20 and residential rural. The place type is mixed residential neighborhood, which is consistent with the proposed zoning. There is an associated non-contiguous annexation with this application. As you can see, the City of Durham boundaries are shown in yellow. The applicant has included textual commitments, including stormwater control measures, a minimum of 10 units to be income restricted to households earning 80% area median income or less for a period of at least 30 years, a contribution of $60,000 to Durham Public Schools, and additional impervious surface, tree preservation, and steep slope requirements. A neighborhood meeting was held in accordance with UDO requirements on January 20th, 2022, where no community members were in attendance. The proposal is generally consistent with the place type map designation of MRN, mixed residential neighborhood. Staff have determined this is consistent due to the introduction of a new dwelling type in a predominantly uniform single-family area. The development plan commits to a minimum of 10 units, again, to be designated as income restricted, addressing affordability for the 120 townhouse unit development. While 2 vehicular stream crossings and 1 utility crossing are proposed, the development plan does mitigate other environmental disturbances through limiting the amount of impervious surface to 37% of the site. Committing to 25% of tree preservation and limiting disturbance of steep slopes to only 10.4%. Per UDO paragraph, almost done, sorry, wrapping up. Per UDO paragraph 1.2.1, this proposal is potentially in the public interest due to increasing supply of market rate and income restricted housing available to residents in Durham. The proposal is potentially not in the public interest due to the unique environmental features on site and the variables identified in the climate justice impact tool. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are available for questions.
Thank you. At this time, the chair is going to open the public hearing and call the applicant forward. Is the applicant present? Are they in the hallway, do you know? All right, we don't have the applicant present. We're going to call the, have community members that are in person present. And we have everyone that has the slideshow presentation. Alexander, is someone ready to assist them to get the slideshow up? We have Rebecca and Pam and Wanda and Donna. Are you all going to go, you all lined up in the air? Okay. All right.
Hi, I'm Wanda Allen, and my address is on record. I want you to look at this map. Look at the northern part of the map. It clearly states that this development is in the environmental justice population. Also note the numbers. We have already in this area 16,227 dwellings have been approved. which includes townhomes and apartments. Look also at this map or this chart. There are nearly 20,000 dwellings that are pending. So tonight, when you make your decision, consider the lack of the infrastructure in this area. Durham Fire and EMS Department audit clearly states that EMS and the fire department are not meeting the standards. Also in their audit, the Durham Fire Department continues, their number one statement was 2 recommendations. Please, you need to continue monitoring the response time and the service time and make sure they're in acceptable basis of city risk. Number 2, the fire department should incorporate in their decision the impact of future growth when carrying out policies and services. Policy 119, ensure new developments that which are established or within the level of service that EMS, fire department, and police can service the area. Policy 122 says monitor it continuously. The audit clearly says the most important thing is the response time in a person's life. So I ask you tonight to please consider the infrastructure when you make your decision.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commission, Madam Chair, and Commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm Rebecca Freeman at 1818 Southview Road in Southeast Durham. I've lived there for many, many years. Many years. This site is not within a 15-minute walking distance of stores, jobs, and businesses. And the other thing with this site is that we want new development according to the comprehensive plan designed to respect, support, and fit into existing neighborhoods and for residents to be involved in those decisions. As you see on the slide here, the proposed zoning map change designation is not contiguous with other city properties in the area. It is not within the existing community character. As you heard earlier, there are lots of single housing in here, and they're going to put only townhouses on this very sensitive site. Also, for proximity to schools and businesses, grocery stores, and transit stop, it's over 2 miles to get there. They would take about 2 hours to walk it, and they would have to go on 5 different roads with no sidewalks, no bike lanes, and very small shoulders. These are roads and not streets that they would have to access anything. If they were trying to access the school, a park, and the closest retail or commercial area, they would have to go between 3 miles and 3.8 miles to get there, taking them between 1 hour and 3 minutes to walk or 1 hour and 17 minutes to walk to those areas down roads. They would have to go on one road for the school and the park, which is down Cheek Road. And I don't know if any of you have gone down Cheek Road or not, but it's very narrow. And then they'd have to go 2 roads for the retail. Healthcare would be over 5 miles. And 2 roads, 1 highway, NC 98, and then also 1 city street with sidewalks and bike paths. But for the 2 roads in the highway, there are not bike paths. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Pam Williams, and my address is on file. I would like to state that I have nothing against development, but this property needs to be more of a low-impact development and not quite as dense. There is over 4,600 annual average daily traffic. Traffic comes from North Durham and Granville County to use Burton Road as a cut-through from I-85 to RTP. Granville County is growing and traffic will be increasing. And I don't believe this was taken into account into the Carpenter Falls TIA. This project did not require TIA because it's considered a low impact due to there's no more than, it's less than 1,000 ADT. average daily traffic. This is a prime example of risk we take when cumulative impacts for the area isn't taken into account. The TIA that was done on Carpenter Falls did not include the proposed development, nor did it include Panther Creek, which is across the street from Carpenter Preserve. Thus, the level of service for 2026 billed out for AM and PM and the 124-second delay will be worse than expected. Models are only as good as the information provided, and being an engineer, I know that very well. As proposed, no improvement will be made at the Cheek Road intersection 500 feet south, but some improvements will be made at the intersection 600 feet north of for the Carpenter Preserve project. Most of the people in the community who travels these roads don't understand this logic, especially when Cheek Road is equal within the amount of accidents that there are. Even though these roads at this site are state roads, the approval of high-density developments has increased the vehicles at or above the roadway capacities due to how narrow it is and how many driveways it has on it per DOT standards. And there's no plans to improve the roadway system out here. Just so you know what level of service D is, please see the block. And 2026, the level of service F, as predicted by Carpenter Preserves, is on the right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Pamela Andrews, Wake Forest Highway. Greetings, everybody. Tonight we ask for a commitment to no mass grading due to the pollution and the destruction of sensitive wetlands in our creeks. We heard a lot tonight about sensitive areas. This is sensitive. We ask for the commitments to one stream crossing and one wetland crossing, not the two, to reduce the damage. Damaging the streams and wetlands comes with huge consequences to the environment. Mass grading increases impervious surface, destroys mature trees, with only trees in the creek beds being spared. This increased flooding, sediment-laden creeks, and high turbidity in creeks which flow into Falls Lakes, as we've seen over and over again. We also ask for a commitment to no variances in the wetlands and buffers, which has been the case recently. The neighbors already suffer from tremendous, look at these pictures. It's unbelievable how much flooding they have on this road. This friend's driveway on Burton Road, which massive flooding with every rain, an additional 12.94 acres cleared will increase the flooding problem tremendously. The Southern Environmental Law Center publicly quoted this week. Wetlands prevent flooding, improve our water quality, and protect wildlife as well. Saving the wetlands protects our communities. When it rains, our wetlands act like natural sponges that absorb floodwaters, lowering flood levels and slowing the rise of waters downstream, a life-saving combination for North Carolina. A 1-acre wetland can typically store up to 1.5 million gallons of water. So when developers and industry destroy wetlands, communities lose flood protection. Damaging the wetlands will cost millions of dollars to property damage. Be honest, he's saving you 1 acre, but it's only because he can't develop in the floodplains, the wetlands, and in the creek buffers. Is that really a gift to the environment? No. Please say no.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Donna Steinbach. I live at 4825 Jimmy Rogers Road in Durham. And I'm actually a member of this particular community, been in this community all my life, and I know the ins and outs and the traffic problem there. I just wanted to state that before I went into my topic about committing to no blasting. The developer did say that at one of the meetings, that he would commit, but we need to have it finalized because blasting causes well damage, permit violations, like with well testing, home damage, cracks in walls and ceilings, foundation damage, septic system damage, and it impacts the groundwater pollution and location. It destroys the habitats for the wildlife. So it's very important to not have this in this sensitive area. If blasting occurs, then over 150 homes will be at risk for home, water, well, or septic damages with no recourse. We've not been able to get any recourse. So definitely need a no to blasting for this one. And I am not for this particular project for the other reasons I mentioned. Now, the other thing with this property was that it was a landlocked property, and we were wondering, has the solution for the landlocked properties been resolved? So I guess we won't get that answer without the representative here, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the galley that would like to speak? Is there anyone on the Zoom platform that would like to speak? We have Ghassan Sadat.
Yes, hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ghassan Sadat, and my address is on file. I own the lot right behind the development where is in the last meeting in the plan they presented the landlocked in the lots behind them. I'm one of the owners behind them, so that will render our lot landlocked, and they did not propose any connection or any ways to not to lock land us, and that's all I have for that. I don't know if they have a new planning for not to lock us or a new blueprint. That's my concern, is the land lock.
Thank
Because I
you.
own. You're welcome. Thank you.
Next on the Zoom, we have Amanda Belgrave.
Hi, my name is Amanda Belgrave, and I live at 4103 Cheek Road, just behind this development. I have major concerns over the impervious surface being projected at 37%, which was addressed when this initially came before you all previously. And they're committing to 100-year stormwater runoff. Originally, they proposed 2 play areas, which now have subsequently disappeared. They have 120 townhomes, which means you need 240 spaces. I just don't understand how everything is going to fit within what they are committing to. I did want to mention he did commit to no blasting previously before the council, and I think that staff maybe captured that. But my other concern is the tree preservation being 25%. We've never gotten a clear answer, and clearly we won't tonight as the applicant isn't there, as to how much of a buffer will be behind that, as that whole property is going to border that back end anyway, up against the pre-existing neighbors. And then with any incline, I mean, it's a straight shot down into your neighbor's yard, so any of that water is just going to run off. I'm not really sure how they're going to be able to mitigate that, and what the consequences will be for my neighbors. And then, obviously Burton and Cheek echoing, Pam's statements earlier about traffic and whatnot. It is a very dangerous intersection, and if any accidents happen on 85, it's an immediate, everybody's off the highway onto Cheek. I just ask that you guys reconsider saying no to this development, and hopefully, they'll find a better use for this, and keep it, what it already is zoned for. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tina Motley Pearson. Can we unmute her?
Okay, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good evening. My name is Tina Motley Pearson. I am a Durham County resident and my address is on file. I'd first like to reiterate that there is a lack of infrastructure in this area, and oftentimes when developments are considered, you aren't really considering the collective impacts from other developments that are in the works or not even built yet. Because you've got Panther Creek 2, Carpenter Preserve, the villas at Carpenter Woods, and now Sagebrook. And all of this development is a strain on the environment. It's also a strain on the current residents and the infrastructure. And I mean, I don't know what the hurry is to keep passing all these developments. I will say that it seems like most of the prime locations have been built out in Durham. So now developers are scouting out environmentally sensitive areas to build on, such as highly erosive Triassic Basin soils and areas with wetlands. But, you know, there's a cost to this. There are sensitive wetlands in the area. But I would just like for you to please consider the collective impacts. We know from experience that development practices such as mass grading and blasting have been detrimental to the residents and the environment. So I just ask that you vote no on this project. Thank you so much and have a good evening.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else. Is there anyone else on the Zoom platform that would like to speak? Again, there's no one in the galley. The applicant, there was someone who, nope, it was not. All right, we're going to close the public hearing and open it up for commissioner comment and discussion, questions and discussion. Anyone have any questions? Because the applicant's not here. Go ahead, Commissioner Cease.
Just one quick question for staff. Could you just clarify what changed from the last time it appeared before us and the form that it's in today?
Yes, thank you for that question. Brooke Roper, City County Planning. So the changes included the additional Durham Public Schools contribution. The applicant was going to look into the 1-foot strip of land, that buffer along the eastern side, and providing ownership of that strip of land. And then also the contribution of the 10 income restricted units as well. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? No. Commissioner Gorham?
Can staff confirm if there's any changes in the blasting language? I saw in the city council results that it was mentioned there would be no blasting and the language is to be finalized.
Thank you, Commissioner Durham. That is correct. The applicant had made a comment or a proffer at City Council that they would make a commitment around blasting. They have not responded to any language changes as of this time. Also, staff wants to know we did reach out to both the applicant and the agent and have not heard back either. Do with that as you will.
I'm sorry. So that would mean we are not, like the case that we are voting on right now won't have the commitment, right?
It's not in your packet right now because we have not fleshed out language with the applicant yet.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Are we ready to move this case forward? May we have a motion, please?
Chair, as it relates to case Z220019, BDG 2200013 Sagebrook, make a motion that we move this case forward to City Council with a favorable recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Cutright and seconded by Commissioner Cease to move case, I lost the number, Z220019 Sagebrook forward to City Council with a favorable recommendation. May we have the roll call vote, please?
Chair Cameron?
No.
Commissioner Cutright?
No.
Commissioner Graves-Manns?
No.
Commissioner Durham?
No.
Commissioner Kopak?
No.
Commissioner McIver?
No.
Commissioner Cease?
No.
Commissioner Valentine?
No.
Commissioner Williams?
No.
Commissioner Woke?
No.
Motion fails 10-0.
Thank you. All righty, it is 8:16.
So if staff would like to clarify, so as if this is okay, the newly adopted rules of procedure, this didn't change from the old ones, but per 2.6 temporary chair, in the absence of both the chair and the vice chair, the DPC may appoint any of its members present in session to serve as temporary chair. So we read that as we need to finish this last case. At the very least, we need to open the public hearing, do a staff presentation, and if we don't have a chair, we can appoint a temporary one to finish the case.
All right, so do we have a nomination for a temporary chair? Is that how we're doing it, or we're just saying? We have a nomination? Just self-nominating? Sure. All right.
I nominate myself.
Second.
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 All right, all in favor of Commissioner Cutright as temporary chair and a succession plan for chair in the future? I'm sorry, I'm just joking. Let me make that a real motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carried. Oppose? No. You just nominated yourself. Okay, can we just take a 5-minute break so I can just clean up and then you can just take everything over? All right, thank you. Just 5-minute recess real quick.
All right, we're ready to resume? All right. We'll move forward with case Z2300031 and BDG 2300020, the Alfred Tract. We'll have staff report.
Great, thank you, Chair Calrett. Real quick, I just want to introduce Sarah Long, who is the newest member of the growth management team, so you'll be seeing her more at Planning Commission along with Brooke Roper. She's not new to the department. She worked on the comprehensive plan, so we are bringing the breadth of knowledge and experience from her work in that into this space. So we're super excited to have her. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Alexander. Good evening. My name is Sarah Long, and I'm with the City County Planning, and I will be presenting on Z2331, BDG 2320, Alfred Tract. Erica Leatham of MI Homes proposes to change the zoning designation of one parcel of land totaling 13.22 acres and located at 433 Sharon Road. The current zoning is residential rural and residential suburban 20. The applicant proposes to change this designation to Plan Development Residential 7.698 to allow up to 100 townhome units. The properties are currently designated mixed residential neighborhood on the place type map. And the aerial map shows that the general location of this project is southeastern Durham. The existing zoning, as I mentioned before, is residential rural and residential suburban 20. And the place type is mixed residential neighborhood, which is, the project is consistent with this place type. And finally, the annexation map shows us that there is an associated contiguous annexation with this application, and you can see the City of Durham boundaries shown in yellow here. A neighborhood meeting was held in accordance with the UDO requirements on June 6, 2023. 12 community members attended this meeting. So the applicant has proposed textual commitments, including stormwater control measures, a $120,000 contribution to the Durham Dedicated Housing Fund, a $24,000 contribution to the public schools, and the use of native species and trees and other plants as permitted by the Durham Landscape Manual. So this proposal would allow the development of 100 townhouse units on a vacant property. While none of these units are proposed to be income restricted or affordable, the applicant has committed to a one-time contribution to the Durham Dedicated Housing Fund of the amount of $120,000. The proposal also includes additional commitments to improve stormwater management, a one-time contribution of $24,000 to Durham Public Schools, and a commitment to planting native species. In addition, economic and demographic data show that this area is relatively representative of Durham County as a whole, with slightly less cost-burdened renters, but slightly more evictions in this part of Durham. Thank you very much, and staff and applicant are available for questions.
Thank you. We'll now open the public hearing. We'll have the presentation from the applicant, please.
So good evening. Keenan Condor with Morningstar Law Group at 700 West Main Street. Thank you so much, Sarah, for your presentation, and welcome to the growth management team. That whole team does really wonderful, heroic work, so you've got good company. I'm representing the applicant in this case, which is MI Homes, which is represented by Erica Latham. We also have Sam Nye, who is the site planner for this project. I'll be giving the presentation, but Neil Ghosh, if he may have any voice left, he did the community engagement at the beginning of this process, so for specific questions about that, he may step up and answer. But as been stated, this is a rezoning and annexation of a 13.1 acre parcel off Sharon Road in East Durham. Today, there is a house on the property with a U-shaped driveway, but it's actually mostly clear of trees. It's mostly free of trees and other obstacles. The trees that do exist around the perimeter of the site, which actually makes it easier to potentially save them when eventually this goes through the site plan process. This location is, for some, it is ideal for development just based on what is around it. It has 2 developments, 2 residential subdivisions on both the east and south side, and I believe one that is under construction right now on the west. There are also 2 stub streets that stub onto this property, one from the south and one being constructed on this property's west side, so that once this property is developed, you are going to create greater connectivity with the existing homes that have already been built or are currently under construction. That's going to improve pedestrian flow, traffic flow, and really be a benefit to these neighboring properties as well. Additionally, those 3 sides of the property are already annexed into the city of Durham. Therefore, by annexing this property, you're closing a donut hole in the city's jurisdiction, which is one of the goals of the comprehensive plan. Additionally, this residential property product type, townhomes, it really is a good fit for this place because most of what exists already are single-family homes. It's a less dense housing type. So by introducing a maximum of 100 townhomes, you're increasing density and you're also increasing the diversity of housing types in this area. It's also consistent with the comprehensive plan when you have a parcel of fewer than 20 acres to only have one housing type. But the housing type that the applicant's going for is one with greater density. So it will add density to this area. It will create a greater diversity of housing along Sharon Road. And last thing I want to say is again, on trees, as I said, this area is mostly free of trees. And so potentially we'll be able to save a lot of the mature trees along the perimeter. But we expect that as a result of adding the UDO required plantings, we will actually increase the number of trees and vegetation on the site based on what is there currently. So, and of those required UDO plantings, we have pledged that they will be native species. So what you have currently at the site is almost a free field without many trees. We'll be capturing the 100-year storm on that site, and we'll be adding vegetation as well as much needed housing density. So given all those factors, I think this is a very reasonable request, and the project will benefit our city's housing supply. So please let me know if you have any questions, but we hope for your support on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to public comments. We have Rebecca, Pam, Wanda, and Ms. Williams. Donna.
Oh, my gracious. Okay. I'm not as fast as Alex, but I get there. It's up. Thank you, Alex. Oh, thank you, Alex. Sorry, I'm the first speaker. My name is Pam Williams. I'm a Durham resident, and my address is on file. I want to bring to your attention this map of, it's mainly Lick Creek, which is all this area, and then over on this area, it's Little Lick Creek. Right now in this area, we have 42 dense developments under construction. 17 more are approved and pending construction. Of the 40, the ones that have been approved, 41% are approved are townhomes, 20% are approved for apartments, and only 39 approved for a single family. I would say this area is already dense. You know, do we need more dense housing in this area? And I want to bring to your attention, you see all these triangles, these green triangles, they are townhomes that's already been approved. A lot of these are under construction, such as this at Wesley Downs, Harlow Point. The red dots mean that it's under construction. So as you can see, we have a lot that's under construction out here, a lot of dense, and we're doing a lot of impact to our area. Here, Southeast Durham has approved over 16,227 new dwelling units, which equals to about 37,000 people coming in this area. This is the size of Wake Forest, and all y'all know about the growth that's going on in Wake Forest now. Well, Wake Forest is only 37,000, but Wake Forest is continuing building roads and infrastructure. They have their own hospital or two down there. And this is not, the 37,300 is not counting the existing population. Plus, there is a planned charter school out here that's 1,250 students, which is going to increase the population and the traffic flow out here quite a bit. In the 4 areas of Southeast Durham, we have 49 subdivisions under construction now. Please consider the lack of infrastructure in this area. We have none. There's none proposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Rebecca Freeman, and thank you for letting me speak again. I wanted to talk about this as a crisis. A local resident posts emergency calls on Facebook. He doesn't monitor them all the time because he does have a job. But these are many examples right here of a crisis just recently that shows there is a current emergency service gaps in our city. As you'll see, on Tuesday, there was a fire truck wrecked with a car, and there's a car with injuries. There's a home break-in in our particular area. EMS advising police there are no units available. 3 calls are on hold. The female is in pain and will have to wait until EMS units become available. The next one in the middle column, Durham has no EMS units available to respond to calls requesting Durham and Wake to help. The next one, active fire, 15 units from surrounding areas are being dispatched. They had to call in the local surrounding areas to help them out. And then on the last column there, they were at a restaurant at South Point Mall. The manager can't get an answer when calling 911. A 50-year-old female needs EMS, and they had trouble getting help for her. And just in the last few weeks, specifically in the southeast area in which we live, I just looked on Facebook before coming, there was a motorcycle wreck fatality on a Monday morning on Stallings Road, loud explosions and multiple calls on Cheek Road, and EMS needed on Carpenter Road. So we do have a gap in services. We don't always get answered when 911 is called, and many times their police are not available, and many times there is a concern about whose jurisdiction is it. Is it a county, is it a city, and there's a conference call on that, and the person is waiting for help. So we do have a crisis out in that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pamela Andrews, Wake Forest Highway. Greetings, everybody, again. So I just want to hold this up because people don't know what we're talking about. This is the audit that was done on October 2022 of the Durham Fire and EMS report. If you've not seen it, please take time to look at this. Fire and EMS are not meeting the standards. There were 2 recommendations from this audit. The first, they should continue monitoring response times. The second, an outside experts were to perform a study that incorporates forecasting to determine the impact of future growth on its current resources. Have either of these been done? I can't say. Next slide. Engine 8. This one engine in this, which is supposed to answer these calls that you're looking at tonight, this resident. This one ran 1,614 calls last year. There is no ladder truck at this station. No ladder truck at this station. How are they going to answer apartment fires, townhome fires? I don't know without a ladder truck. How do we handle all the new people and dwellings when there are 49 developments, as Pam just told you, with 17 additional already pending? At what point are we putting people's lives in jeopardy? This is an additional 37,000 people plus and over 5,000 acres cleared. That is a lot, my friends. It's a lot. Policy 119 tells us we're supposed to look at these new developments and establish that we have emergency services. And then lastly, in your new comprehensive plan, this was identified 3 areas in Southeast Durham needs fire help before we should pass more stuff. Fletcher's Chapel, Stallings Road, Southeast Durham. We are in a crisis in Southeast Durham. We don't have the infrastructure. And then lastly, the consequences of approving this development application without addressing basic health and safety concerns is clear. Approving a development plan that fails to meet the safety needs with no enforceable way to ensure it is addressed in the future is unprincipled. Please help us in Southeast Durham. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening again. I'm Donna Steinbach from Durham County. If blasting occurs, then over 200 homes will be at risk for home, well, water, air blast, or septic damages with no recourse. Why are blasting damages being covered by other counties and not in Durham? Raleigh caught a blasting company drilling without a permit, and this same company had a rock go through a second row home. Now, this same company does a major portion of the blasting in Durham County, East Coast Drilling. The city holds the bond on the blasting companies. The responsibility should be on the city to provide an independent third party to evaluate the damages and pay restitution for damages. We're continuing to develop, and then nobody's taking care of all these people that have had this damage done to their homes and wells and water. And so also, I traveled this route often, and my cousin called, well, she sent me a thing from Facebook and said, okay, when did they turn Sharon Road into a freeway? The traffic is so bad and so fast down it, it's dangerous because people are trying to get there. And I got backed up to Hocut Road, and I had to cross over 98, which is quite a distance, and they had taken the turn lane and another lane and got the lanes in parallel because the traffic was so bad crossing 98. And the same thing happens crossing 70 of a morning. It is atrocious there. Now, on infrastructure, my son had to, could not get an emergency vehicle when he was having a reaction to his chemotherapy last year. My husband had to drive like a maniac because the oncologist said to get him there, and the oncologist was very upset and said, bring him to Wake Med. I know I can get somebody to work on him quickly there. So, a city of medicine, if we don't have the infrastructure, we can't support that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Wanda Allen, and my address is on record. I want you to notice the settlement basin in the left photo. It is within 400 feet of the Little Lick Creek, which is on the 3OD impaired list, which the city is supposed to take special efforts to protect it. Okay, it said 7 days. This water has been sitting in this settlement pond for 7 days. The new regulations that we have put in place, that the city and the county put in place, says all it has to be is in there 4 days, okay? 4 days. It's not working, you guys. As you can see, the settlement is going directly into the creek. Who's monitoring it? Where are the notices of violations? Why do we keep continuing to dump in our streams and our waterway? Why do we continue to destroy Falls Lake? And why do the taxpayers have to continue to pay for this cleanup? The consequences, the settlement is going into Falls Lake. Okay? The policy 86 clearly states that we should protect the water sources that provide drinking water for our adjacent counties. You guys, we're not meeting it. We are not meeting it. We would like to recommend that at a minimum, that we meet the state's design standard in the sensitive watershed. Use it as a basic for the development of these properties. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Chair, we can help with the Zoom part. And the first would be Mimi Kessler.
Go ahead, Mimi.
Good evening again. I feel, I don't know how to express this, but I don't think that we should be here time after time after time saying the same things, other than it has to be in the public record. And I would say, again, which I have said to you before, this area needs to have a moratorium on development. We have plenty of things in progress, and we just need to stop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Cutright, the next speaker would be Scott Garner.
Yes, hello. My name's Scott Garner. I live at 1711 Laurel Lane. My property abuts the Alfred Tract, and also is within feet of the development that is currently under construction right beside it. I have a few issues with this development. One is stormwater issues. I have an inlet on my property. The other construction has already caused the inlet to become clogged, and we had pretty significant flooding in our yard that had to be addressed. And there's also existing wetlands on the property, and I think that there's a lot of pressure that currently exists there. I don't know that we need to add that. My other issue is this is a cleared lot. You know, there's been a tremendous number of trees taken down on the other lot. And my one request was, to just preserve the existing trees. And I can see that they're going to be cut into, and that's just the minimum. It's just we're just talking about the 20%. The tree preservation is 20%. It's the minimum. They're also, just meeting the minimum on impervious surface. The traffic situation on Sharon is getting to be miserable. We have multiple projects on Sharon Road already in development and mass clearing. There's and it's all just on one small road. I mean, I don't know where you're going to expand to when traffic becomes a problem there. Everything is built right up to the road. I just don't know what you're going to do there in the long term. The other development did blasting.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate it.
Chair Cutright, the next speaker is Rebecca Hunter.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Hunter, and I live at 1716 Nelora Lane. So many folks who have spoken today are well-researched and passionate, and I am nowhere near as well-researched as they have been, but I am very passionate about Durham, and therefore I would like to speak. This was kind of a last-minute choice of mine today. I moved to Durham in 2019, and I very quickly fell in love with my community here. When my partner had the opportunity to move down here a few years later, we decided we'd be time to buy a house. And as this body knows, it was difficult for us to do so due to rising housing costs. And eventually we found a home near one of the substreets that the applicant mentioned earlier. I bring this up to say I am generally in favor of more housing. But in addition to what others have said tonight, I have some of my own opinions. I love our home and our neighborhood, but there's one thing I don't love, and that's my commute. Not because of the distance, but because of the danger. When I leave our neighborhood to go onto Sharon Road, my commute is stressful and at times dangerous, which continues onto South Miami Road, which I affectionately refer to as the worst road in Durham because of the traffic. This has become such a problem that I now go to my office later in the day, which is a luxury many of my neighbors do not have. I'd like to take a second to note that I would take the bus if there was a stop I could get to safely, but there is not. Not only because it's far away, but because the roads to reach the closest one is unsafe for pedestrians or cyclists. This area is designated as an on-demand zone in the Durham Transit Plan, which the city is a partner in. And this indicates to me that there is existing need here that is not being met with the current density that we have at hand. And given my own experiences, I believe that to be true. I'd like to close out by saying I like the idea of more housing, especially housing at a reasonable price and density. As noted earlier, this development does not have any affordable unit plans, and I would like to push for that, not necessarily in this development, but in general. There has not been a comprehensive traffic study in the recency of the area that I'm aware of, and given my own experiences, I would like to push for that as well. So at this time, I oppose until we can address the traffic study as well as the environmental concerns other folks have mentioned tonight. Thank you all so much for your time and for staying late this evening.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Chair Cutright, there are no other hands raised in the queue.
Thank you. Any other speakers want to speak on the Zoom or in person? Applicant, would you like to address anything you've heard?
So first of all, thank you for everyone who's spoken. However, I would like to respectfully push back on a couple of points. One of the things we just heard from the speaker online is about concerns about flooding and stormwater. Right now, the site is mostly free of obstruction, and stormwater tends to flow as it follows the topography and has the potential to flow onto other people's properties, whereas what is proposed here is a plan to contain the 100-year flood and increase the stormwater protections for this area. So hopefully that will address the person on the phone's concerns, so that hopefully this will improve stormwater in the area. Another thing I wanted to discuss is that most of the concerns we heard today are related to development in this region generally, and fewer specific to this project. And you know, I think we have heard these concerns a lot, and they are very valid, but I did just want to highlight that point. Another thing to add, I think we wanted to address blasting, if we could, briefly. The development across the street that this developer worked on did not require blasting. Unfortunately, we're not ready today to make a commitment that no blasting will be required, but I did just want to point that out at the onset. So, those are the few things I wanted to address, if I could, briefly. So thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Cutright, we have another speaker online.
Okay.
It's Tina Motley Pearson.
Hey, good evening again. My name is Tina Motley Pearson. I'm a Durham County resident, and my address is on file. There was a slide that, it was like the last slide on the presentation that Pam Andrews and all of them did. And so I don't know if you can see that or not. Anyway, I'm just going to talk. But on March 16th of this year, Samantha Kropp, the Neuse Riverkeeper, led a group of us to go visit Lick Creek. And she actually provided waiters so we could go into the creek. And if you can see the photo, it's easy to see that Martin Creek has significant impact from upstream development. Actually, that's the stream that the Southern Environmental Law Center got involved with. But anyway, with that development, but there's an obvious delineation of sediment in Martin Creek as it flows into Lick Creek. So the turbidity in Martin Creek far surpasses the state standard of 50 NTU. In fact, it was actually recorded at over 2,000 NTU on several occasions. And there's really, critters can't live in this type of water. You know, the sediment is detrimental to creek life, and most creeks downstream of development look like this, especially, you know, if it's mass grading sites. Really, all of Southeast Durham is in the Triassic Basin, which means the soils are highly erosive and the topography is generally hilly in the area. So mass grading and blasting are what developers do, no matter what the impact to the environment or how it affects residents, homes, and wells. So please consider the collective impacts of all of this development in Southeast Durham. I will say it is seriously too much. And if you haven't been out there, just go out there and see it for yourself. Anyway, thank you so much. I really appreciate you listening. All right, good night.
Thank you. Any other speakers online? Anyone else? The public hearing is now closed. We're open for commissioner discussion and questions.
Thank you. The concerns that the community has expressed that we've heard time and time again in general for this portion of the county are serious ones. They're ones that need to be addressed in a comprehensive way. And I think that's well understood by this body. From an individual perspective, I probably have voted against more projects in this area, or at least as much as others have in this area. I think I've been pretty consistent in that, particularly with the larger projects. To me, this particular proposal is different than a lot of the large-scale projects that we've seen in this area. And I would just want to briefly point out a few of the things that I think are relevant to the question that is before us. And to me, the question that is before us is not one of being part of any type of moratorium. I think that provokes an entire set of legal and political challenges that are problematic in the context of our current state legislature. That being said, this project is, what's the acreage? 13 acres. It is located directly on Sharon Road, which has its transportation problems, but that is what it is. This project is a site that is already clear-cut. I think it would disturb, just glancing at the development plan, probably less than half an acre of existing trees. And it would connect 3 points. It would connect Sharon Road to the north, the existing subdivision to the south, subdivision under construction to the west. Would my preference be for there to be something else there? Absolutely. My preference would be to have something that would serve as more of a neighborhood center for those existing subdivisions, the newer ones that are south of Sharon, the older ones that are north of Sharon Road. But the market dynamics are what they are. So, I think the decision here is one of not do we approve development or not. It's do we approve development that would allow 100 townhomes with some financial proffers, or do we allow the existing zoning to stand, which would allow 28 homes? So it's a delta of whatever that is, 72 homes. And I think that this tract cannot carry that larger community burden that is very real. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Kopat.
Thank you, Chair. So the applicant, you had spoken about promoting greater connectivity with some of the other communities. And so having visited the site, I see how they are adjacent to each other. But I also saw a number of suggestions about ways to help promote that connectivity for walking and biking, to help promote safety, at least among those residential communities, if not addressing safety issues in the broader context. But I didn't see much of that offered in the application. I'm curious if you have more you can share about specific ways, particularly regarding the BPAC recommendations around bike ped connectivity and safety, and if those are ones that MI Home have considered and already taken into account.
So I think your first question was about connectivity within the properties east of Sharon Road with some of the already developed areas.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we'll be stubbing. There's already an existing stub street to the south that is part of the developed property there. To the west, they're constructing a stub street on that side that this property will connect to with roads as well as, I believe, sidewalks. So you will be able to walk throughout these adjacent communities, as well as the drivers coming from these existing single-family home residences will now be able to drive through this property and enter Sharon Road and have another point of access to Sharon Road. So you are diffusing some of the traffic that's going to a single point, potentially on Sharon Road, through another outlet point. So that does improve connectivity for vehicles as well as cars in that area. And I think we have discussed the BPAC recommendations, and my understanding is we've chosen at this time not to proceed with them.
Okay.
Thank
All right, thank you. And also just comment, that I don't have a further question, but just to comment as well, having visited this area, it is incredible to see the amount of development that's happening right now. And it was helpful to hear from the community residents to quantify the number of developments planned, the number of residents that they will accommodate, and just appreciate hearing those concerns raised, because it's very evident to anyone driving through and visiting, just the level of development we're seeing right in this one concentrated spot. It's almost like we're building a new city. I think it makes me think of the planned development for Chatham County, except I'm curious if, for that development, if there's more comprehensive thinking around infrastructure than what is currently happening, but that also requires more education on my part about, what is ultimately driving a lot of this development patterns, and leading to this kind of crush of development we're seeing right now in this one spot. So just want to acknowledge, having heard that and having seen it, the reality of that is very clear.
And that's very known as well to the applicant. The fact is, I think as we all have experienced, is that this area is going through pretty incredible growth. There are people that are moving to this community at a pretty incredible rate. And if you look at our community, not as just the Durham community, but as the Research Triangle community, and you ask, where is there availability for homes? Where is there land available? And where do we want to put them on a little kind of more of a global thought? We could put them at the far periphery of our community, our greater community, like Creedmoor and Mebane, in Pittsburgh, like the community you mentioned in Chatham Park. Or you could build them closer to the core of this region, closer to our biggest job centers in Research Triangle Park, areas where there is still land available that can be developed. I think that's what is driving these changes. There has been some infrastructure increases in this area. It's clearly not enough for everyone, and that's understandable because growth is happening incredibly fast as a result of market realities and as a result of so many people who are moving here. But an example is the Searles lift station. The city has invested money in this area of the city, anticipating that growth is going to happen in Durham, and suggesting that this is where it should be.
Any other questions, comments from commissioners? No. Commissioner Valentine.
Yeah, so this is for the applicant. So I consider any affordable housing provisions that are part of these projects to be one that's shared with our community. In this particular project, there doesn't seem to be a commitment to that. Can you share your thoughts about that?
Yeah, absolutely. This developer really prefers to address the widely accepted, and the fact that we all recognize that housing is becoming less affordable. This developer likes to address that by providing cash proffers. It just works best with their model. And so that's what they have done by providing a $120,000 proffer to the Durham Affordable Housing Fund. With that said, we are continuing to evaluate, very sincerely, opportunities to provide units as well. In fact, the developer has had a conversation with Habitat for Humanity. The developer is actively seeking a partner. We can't be sure if that will, those talks will come to complete fruition before City Council, but sincerely, the developer is working on trying to find a partner to eventually provide units in addition to the cash proffer.
I'll just piggyback on that. I as well typically like to see some sort of affordable housing, especially in these newer developments. I understand what works for the developer's model, but injecting cash into an inefficient bureaucratic system doesn't work well for the housing model and the needs that we have. So I don't think that's the best use of funds in this case. The other thing I've talked about before is sacrifice, environmental, housing. Sometimes you have to make a choice. In this case, I feel like we're sacrificing both. So we're not getting any affordable housing. You're impacting all the creeks. So this doesn't feel like, I don't feel like there's a win here. There is housing stock being added. That's great. But there are some pressing needs. So I'll leave it at that.
And that's very, as noted, we're working on the affordable housing, potentially providing units, but that is noted. And then on the environmental point, I think this is a situation where we're very fortunate where the environmental impacts of development that comes with any development are somewhat mitigated here by the fact that the site is already clear of trees. And so if you're going to build density someplace, this seems like a good spot where you're not cutting down as many trees as maybe some other spot.
Yeah, and acknowledging the lack of need for clear cutting and the contribution to the fund, I would just appreciate and echo the comments made by Commissioners Valentine and Cutright, especially when you have, a potential sales price valuation at $400,000. I mean, it's not like we're trying to keep the whole like project at like affordable 80% AMI, anything like that. Like, it seems like there is more potential as we seek to have housing available to people at all levels. But, when I think of the broader picture of serving the objectives of the comprehensive plan through individual projects, it seemed like almost through precision an effort to offer a project that delivers at the minimums, across a variety of our community goals, including environmental, and then housing with the contribution. And so I just would like to see, would have liked to have seen more across the board in order to continue to support these community goals we have while we wrestle with some of these tensions that do exist when we see these projects.
And just real quickly on kind of the same point of mixing the housing, affordable housing on the project itself, I'm just curious, what is the advantage of the text commitment that limits you to providing a townhouse versus not having that limit?
So your question is whether it'd be preferable if there was no condition limiting the housing type?
Correct. And part of it is to allow flexibility should whatever conditions change, preferences, thinking about Habitat and some of the other affordable housing providers to have flexibility in the actual unit type. But even just the project itself, with this being mixed residential place type, this is as much of a general question as a project-specific question, but just the sentence, housing type shall be limited to townhouse. Maybe that's truth in advertising, but why limit it to townhouse in that text commitment and cut off the potential for accommodating on-site affordable housing that's provided in a different type?
Right. I think the project is envisioned as a townhouse project right now, and there's just a general practice to provide some specificities to give people who come to neighborhood meetings, to give people who evaluate the applications some even clearer idea that we are committing that this is what we've envisioned and we're going to put that in writing. So I really think it comes from that desire. But
well, just personally, I think that I understand what you're saying, and I know that's typical practice. That also cuts against kind of the spirit, I think, of the mixed residential type. Mm-hmm. And so I would, just discourage the embrace of that convention.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? One question really quick for staff. I think this has come up previously with Brooke, and then this last one. How are we thinking about mixed residential as a place type as it relates to the broader neighborhood? I didn't think we were considering the broader neighborhood in looking at a specific site that's mixed residential, but it sounds like that's something we're starting to consider, is if the broader neighborhood has a singular housing type, that a site can have a singular housing type and help it qualify for the mixed residential place type. Is that what I'm hearing?
Thank you for that question, Commissioner Cutright. So there's a policy about mixed residential neighborhoods. If there's 20 acres or more, they're required to provide 2 different housing types or more. There's also a 50-acre threshold. This one's obviously only 13 acres. When it's under 20, the way we've been treating it and the transparency we've provided to applicants online is that we look at the surrounding context and we are looking to introduce an additional use, a residential use in the area. That does not preclude them from providing 2 or more residential uses if it's less than 20. That's just how we're evaluating it for consistency.
That's right. Thank you. I forgot about that. Anything else? Anyone else? ready to move this case forward? Can I have a motion, please?
Chair, I would like to propose a motion to move the case Z230031, BDZ230020 Alfred Tract to the City Council with favorable recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Durham and seconded by Commissioner Kopech to move case Z230031, the Alfred Tract, forward to City Council with a favorable recommendation. May I have a vote, please?
Chair Cutright?
No.
Commissioner Graves-Manns?
No.
Commissioner Durham?
No.
Commissioner Kopech?
No.
Commissioner McIver?
Yes.
Commissioner Cease?
Yes.
Commissioner Valentine?
No.
Commissioner Williams?
No.
Commissioner Woke?
No.
And because Chair Cameron's vote counts as yes, motion fails 7-3.
Thank you. I don't have anything else on the agenda. No committee updates. New business. Any announcements, staff?
You have 3 cases, I believe, 3 or 4 on the May agenda.
All right. There's nothing else. We'll adjourn the meeting.